Are live. Hello, I am Jim with Atheist Edge. I have a great panel tonight. I'm going to just say right off the top that my first failure of setting this up was that I tried my very best to get a wide diversity of melanin content and biological sex in this panel. And you can see, obviously, I failed at that endeavor. But the good news is I did succeed in getting a wide diversity of different ideas um, from both left and right and center on this topic. So the topic tonight is going to be Monday morning, I think it was, Alex Jones disappeared off of YouTube, off of Facebook, off of LinkedIn, Spotify, Pinterest, iTunes, Apple, everyone except Twitter, basically. Everyone scratching their head. Each social media platform had a different reason. A lot of them were a violation of terms of service, but there were other reasons as well. And so that's what we're going to get into. But let me open it up with, I just want to announce, I'm not going to call out all of you. Thank you all for coming, but I just want to point out four really good. Oh, there's TJ. There he is right there. Okay, you made it in. All right, so I got Jim Majors here from Atheist Republic, and we're happy to have him. I've got Chris Stauffer from Suris the Skeptic channel. I got Steve McRae from the Great Debate Community and the Non Sequitur Show. And I got Nathaniel Walters from Atheist, American Atheists. So great to have you all. Great to have everyone. I'm just going to start it off with this. And I just did a little bit of research on Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. I read about this. So I think the best place to start is, well, let's start with this. Does everyone agree that, does anyone disagree that Alex Jones should not, does anyone agree that he should, how do I word this? Does anyone not agree that he should have been removed from all the social media platforms? Does anyone not agree with that?
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it either.
Okay, that's two. Okay, and we'll start with TJ or Chris, and we can just start from there.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. So my thing personally is that I don't care how vile a particular individual is. I think that they should. It gets into a slippery slope argument a little bit. But I do think that they should have the right to be able to be on a platform. I recognize that YouTube is a private organization, and therefore they're liable to do whatever the hell they want, honestly. At any point, they can knock somebody off their platform for whatever reason. I mean, hell, I think most of us that are monetized fight with them over the rights to monetize our videos, literally every other video. So they are well within the rights to do whatever they want. But my argument isn't whether or not they are allowed to, it's whether or not they should be allowed to, because they do have a little bit of a monopoly in the communication area. We have places like Facebook and YouTube, and for the layperson, for the common person, those are really the two sites that are visited the most outside of Google. So these are places where people can give their opinions, and when you are censored on those platforms, if you are not giving direct calls to action, there's where I have issues with. So I guess the first thing I would have to figure out is, were there any direct calls to action that Alex Jones incited directly that would lead to this? Because if there are, then that changes the conversation. But if there aren't, and it's just his opinions, well, he can have vitriolic opinions, but we have people like Steven Anderson and Matt Powell that still have channels, and I'm sorry, I'll say that they're worse.
Well, yes, there was call to actions. I'd like to respond to that. You know, you were saying that unless there was something that he had done to immediately violate or endanger anybody, that you would immediately take back that comment. You know, if you think back to the story that he passed around, that there was a child sex trafficking ring in the basement of a pizzeria, which resulted in a 29-year-old man showing up with a semi-automatic rifle and firing rounds into the pizzeria, demanding that the children that were being held there released. And when the cops eventually showed up and showed that there was no basement, much less a child sex trafficking ring in that basement, he was actually just sentenced. I'm not sure when, but I believe it was to 4 years in prison for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I like, Sirs, how you used I don't think you used it correctly, but the term censorship. And first of all, for the purposes of the discussion, I'm going to be the queer African American gender non-binary. Okay, so I have
Fair enough.
a little bit different instead of the patriarchal white heterosexual male that I am. But I can take any position. So you used the term censorship, but what was actually Alex Jones being censored for? He did have call to actions, not just the Pizzagate, but he actually did want to set drag queens on fire. He did advocate for the position of doxing Sandy Hook families and has advocated the harassment of them, preventing them from even going to the tombstones and grave markers of their deceased children, which I believe is a bullying and cyberbullying. So if he violated terms of service by any one of those things, YouTube has every right, as a private corporation, even though they're publicly traded, they are still a private corporation. They can deplatform him, but that's not censorship. That's not the same thing. There's no violation of freedom of speech there.
Well, I understand well, for one, freedom of speech isn't even part of the conversation because YouTube's TOS and American standard politics are not the same thing. And I think these things get confused a lot.
Well, freedom of speech is not just constitutional; it's also cultural.
Well, it is cultural, but not all cultures have it, and YouTube is available in cultures that don't. So they are global. So when we're talking about it, we can't talk about individual policies of nations. We have to talk about YouTube as an entity, YouTube as a policymaker. You can't bring anything else into the conversation because honestly, nothing else really should enter into that conversation. And as I said before, do they have the right to do this? Yes, 100%. I do not say that they did not have the right. As per terms of service, they have every right to do everything that they did. However, there's also another conversation that is, what kind of monopoly does YouTube or places like Facebook have over communication? I understand that he still has Twitter, and that's pretty much the only thing he's got right now outside of other smaller, more obscure websites that people probably don't even use unless, like, does Alex Jones even have an Amino? I guess that's probably the only place. I know he has the app.
Alex Jones has his own radio station. And one time he had his own TV show. Nobody is saying that he can't have a platform. Right. They're just saying that he can't use their platform. He's more than free to go out and create his own entity, his own software where he can, or his own podcasting app, his own streaming app. It doesn't have to be anything big, but just nobody has to support him.
Yeah, he hasn't gone anywhere. He's still all over the place.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. Like I said, I have no issue with YouTube taking him down as far as what they're technically viable to do, because Facebook can do that, YouTube can do that. All of them can do it as long as he has a method of communicating with people who actually give a shit about what he says, which I think that those people are a little bit crazy.
The right to hear who they want to hear.
As long as people
want to hear a thing, you should be allowed to hear a thing that you want to hear.
Well, is there a consensus on that though? That YouTube, there's like you said, there's two questions on the table. One, did YouTube have the right to deplatform him according to the TOS, and the other one, should they have? So one is basically more of a almost like a legal thing, and the other one is actually what should they do is from a cultural and
one is more of a standpoint question.
So I think that the first part of the question, do they have the right to? Absolutely. No, I don't even know how that's even debatable.
Yeah, I think all of us
that's why they have terms of service. Because when it boils down to it, what's their bottom line? It's the advertisers. And if the advertisers find fault with the content, because all YouTube is a distribution platform, then they're going to pull out. And that's one of the reasons why YouTube cracked down so heavily on a lot of content creators spewing what they consider to be hate speech. Now, I personally am a First Amendment advocate. I think that hate speech is free speech. I think you have the right to offend people.
I agree with that 100%.
Absolutely. Now, not on somebody else's platform, though. If I owned my own distribution thing, then I could say whatever the hell I want. Right. But if YouTube deems certain things as hate speech, that is their prerogative. That's when it goes to more open market and say, well, you know what, you need to find somewhere else to spew your stuff. Because I personally don't want certain things on YouTube. I don't want recruitment for neo-Nazis. I'm not a big, like Antifa or any of those things. So I think some of those things can be censored if they're violating cyberbullying, if they're violating harassment. But it's something that needs to be looked over with a fine-tooth comb, because if not, it can be abusive. Even from the YouTube side, obviously, then they get the empowerment to say, well, you know what, we find this to be not just something that could be demonetized, but something that should not be on our platform. And it does become almost arbitrary if they don't have a well-defined understanding of what it means to harass. And right now, I think YouTube has been pretty arbitrary in some of their decision making.
I agree with you.
Pretty
there.
nebulous. Like even the definition of hate speech or bullying by these platforms is like so nebulous. It's almost meaningless.
I almost want to. I would almost be willing to say that anybody who utilizes the term hate speech or bullying should, for the purposes of whatever conversation they're in, they should have to define what they mean by it every single time, because the terms are so ambiguous that they could literally equivocate throughout the entirety of a conversation and make it mean what they want per each sentence.
Yep. Chris makes a good point, because it's those terms have become basically dog whistles for the ideological left to say anybody I don't agree with is bullying or using
I totally
hate
agree with
speech.
that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let me throw a wrench into this. Mark Zuckerberg does not own Facebook. He's a massive shareholder, but it's a publicly traded company. Do you have to get the? I understand that it's not a private company. It's a
private company that's publicly traded.
It's publicly traded.
Right, but that doesn't matter. It's still it's not owned by any governmental intervention. Therefore, it is a private company.
This was already brought up earlier when we mentioned YouTube being a private company that is publicly traded.
Right.
It was already part of the conversation before.
I was trying to shoot out the show on social media to get more than 15
Is that what
viewers.
the kids are calling it nowadays?
Okay, so let me bring this up. Okay, there is what's her name? What is her name? Sarah Jeong Lee from the New York Times. The New York Times. She is a contributing editor. She has tweeted out the following tweets in the past: cancel white people. White men are bullshit. White people are dogs pissing on fire hydrants. White people in general are goblins who should live underground. Now, a woman named Candace Owens, who leans a little bit right, retweeted those same tweets, but replaced all the word white with Jew. And guess who got banned from Twitter?
The secondary one.
Well, I've said that's a good litmus test. I've always said if you change the word, the pronoun or the noun or whatever the subject is of the phrase, and it sounds racist or bigoted, it's probably racist or bigoted.
Does anyone here think that it's impossible for someone of my skin tone and my chromosome compilation to be it's impossible for someone with darker skin tone to be racist?
Anybody can be racist.
Anybody can be racist.
Well, is there any power plus privilege in here? No.
Well, I think there's something as white privilege, but white privilege has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that anybody be racist. White privilege is more of an institutionalized thing that when you have two people, let's for example, walking together in a affluent neighborhood like Beverly Hills, let's say me and an African American, and there's one cop car and he's kind of following us. If I go to the right and my friend goes to the left, the white privilege is that the cop car is going to kind of tend to go to the left rather than to the right, of all things being equal, ceteris paribus. So that is what I consider to be an institutionalized white privilege. But yeah, anybody can be racist. I mean that has nothing.
Honestly, if you think about it, though, you know, the white privilege versus cop scenario is so tired and played out, but it's what's popular in social media. But you can apply it to anything. You take going in for a job interview, you know, you that's white privilege. You know, you send in a white person for the job versus a black person for the job, the same qualifications. Chances are the white person is going to get the job
on average.
Statistical.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think we have these stereotypes that, you know, pop out as a result of our history and our background.
Well, it has a lot to do with psychological schemas. Anybody who's done a little bit of research into human psychology, we develop schemas based on upbringing. There's a multitude of factors that they're based on, but you will typically develop a schema for what you think a particular Mexican is, what you think a particular black person is, what do you think a particular white person is. And you have those, and unfortunately the trouble is that as humans, our brains are incredibly lazy. They find the shortest route possible to any given problem. And that causes us to default onto schemas. It's a useful survival tactic. It's very useful for survival, but it's not very good when it comes to any type of higher level social conversation, because defaulting to a schema will always end up in always put you in a bad place when you're in a conversation.
It's one of those psychological predilections that actually kind of forms your stereotypes and feeds tribalism a little bit, you know? Yeah, but what I was thinking was interesting was, you know, the whole thing about this marketplace of idea, and that YouTube is, you know, somehow becoming this marketplace of ideas, and that we should treat it more like a public, you know, a public service or public works. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The marketplace of ideas.
Yeah, public utility.
That's what I was looking for, yeah. Yeah, so I was actually watching someone else, and they brought that up, and that was a pretty good topic, I thought, because these things are getting so large, and information is so necessary in our current world that it's kind of like, you know, if we don't, I feel like if we don't treat these things, we don't start treating these things like, you know, public works or utilities, it's going to have the potential to actually steer, you know, all of society. But at the same time, I would really hate to open up some sort of successful business venture, you know, like be the next Zuckerberg or whatever, and then all of a sudden be taken over by the government, you know, or by legislation or whatever, just because my success yielded the best possible product on the market.
Well, we're not taking over. I mean, you're regulated by the government as a public utility,
which is still just as bad.
Owned by the government.
Well, it's functionally it's functionally the same, though. It's functionally the same. If I have 10 rules that you have to follow, or you will be in trouble. Or I have 10 rules you have to follow and you'll be in trouble because I'm your employer. Functionally, you have 10 rules you have to follow or you're in trouble. Functionally, your situation has
can arbitrarily sanction you in a job that you work at. That's not the same with having to follow rules that are under lawful regulation of the government. That's not the same thing. It's not the government coming in and saying, you know, I'm going to control every aspect of this business. They're saying, we're going to set up some guidelines that you have to follow. It's not functionally the same thing, because arbitration doesn't enter into it when you're talking about governmental oversight. There are rules they have to go by in regulating you. You see what I'm saying?
But some regulation will work. Some of it can actually be oversighted. Like, for example, the equal time rule. If news gives a certain amount of time to a particular candidate, they have to allow equal time to somebody else if they request it. That's because they're news networks, right? That's because they're disseminating news on national TV. I don't see the same type of regulation working for YouTube. I mean, if you say that YouTube has a platform,
is not a journalistic platform.
Yeah, they're not a journalistic platform. They're just a distributor
platform. It's not. They're more like AT&T than they are CNN.
Well, true, but if AT&T was the only cell phone provider for 50% of the nation, the conversation changes a little bit.
Or if they said, I don't like Alex Jones, so we're not going to allow him to have a phone.
Yeah, I feel like YouTube is actually more like, you know, one of the large television agencies like HBO or, you know, Cinemax or whatever. They're more like that. They really are geared more towards content creation rather than disseminating.
Cinemax, news. You're showing your age, Ralph.
Yeah,
they're not a published link. You know what? The social media, I think it was Friendster and MySpace. Those started out as publishing platforms, not communication, and they started getting hit with the defamation and the libel because they were held responsible.
Well, that's the problem.
Publishing,
currently they're
publishing thing. Then they're held more responsible.
But if you're a communications platform, AT&T is not responsible for you calling up your friend and, you know, talking hate speech.
Right.
Gotta say, wasn't there actually a thing? I believe it was actually on Joe Rogan's show recently, where they actually went through and showed that Facebook and YouTube are not responsible for any backlash that comes because of content of an individual party.
Yeah.
Like they already have a policy for that.
In fact, I think that's the video I was referencing earlier. Was Rogan's. He was talking to, man, I can't remember who he was talking to, but it was a really interesting podcast. The other thing that came out of that, not shifting gears on you guys too much here, but you know, he says he actually hangs out with Alex Jones, and the dude's actually a pretty normal guy.
Says he got drunk with Alex Jones.
Yeah,
he's a showman.
Yeah, and my whole thing is with this whole YouTube debacle or all of these, you know, media outlets that he's now being denied is, I mean, you know, Steve's right, of course, on the topic of you know, whether or not they have the right to, that's not even a question. You know, the terms of service specifies that. But the thing is if he is a showman, like he has said in the past, so long as he's not, you know, calling for any hard action, you know, I don't see why they should have gotten rid of him. But the fact is that he has. And I guess the straw, you know, as far as social perception goes, the straw that broke the camel's back, I think, was his comments on Sandy Hook.
Mm-hmm.
Something about it being.
They've actually made statements saying that that's not the reason why.
Well, it has to be the burning of the drag queens and shooting Robert Mueller in the head.
Those were the eliminating factors. But I think it's all of the above, right? I think Ralph is right. I don't think even YouTube will come out and say, "Oh, well, it's just because of this and this, and these other things didn't affect our influence our decision." And I think that's BS. Of course,
it's because they're making the frogs gay.
Well,
they're making the frogs gay.
We need more gay frogs.
The reason they deny it, the complete reason why they deny it, is to give themselves a way to not look like the bad guys.
Well, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally for them to be able to wash their hands of it and say, "Oh, it was just because of the terms of service and not because he said anything we disagree."
Again, it goes down to the advertisers, right? Because if there wasn't some things with the advertisers, and the thing with YouTube is that, you know what? I'm sorry, but you don't have to watch a particular channel.
You don't.
There are billions of hours of YouTube videos out there. You don't have to watch stuff. If something is coming across as overtly racist or bigoted, as much as I despise it, you know, you don't have to watch it. Now, I do think that YouTube should limit these things, but I mean, if they changed their position on it and became an absolute type of free speech thing, I'm not against that either. I think the marketplace does kind of self-regulate itself. I think that you will have people watching other things, but then you will have a concentration of certain people watching very, very bigoted type things. I mean, you see what happens with blood sports, and you see what happened with, you know, the alt-right kind of stuff, and that is a breeding ground thing. And the problem with that is that literally does have social effects. That affects the real world, because people do take a lot of things that these people say, and they do go out in the real world and do stupid things like Pizzagate. So,
Josh, I was about to say, Josh, this is the quietest I've ever seen you. I was going to ask you if you think this action maybe martyred Alex a little bit.
Absolutely, and I was going to bring that up. My concern is whether or not they're equally applying these violations of terms of service in other things that they do agree with, and if they're looking at it in the same light, in the same perspective. I actually used to watch Alex Jones in a very serious way. I went through this weird period of you know, I wanted a bunker, and I got my radio license, you know, as a radio operator, because I thought it was coming, and you know, we were going through these drills, and everything was going to be martial law. And no, I mean, it's absolutely true, and I still laugh about that now that I believed half of that, but I mean, I was religious at one time too. So I think my concern is just like sort of what everyone says, and the reason why I was so quiet is I haven't really disagreed with anything that anyone said. I think they had a right to do it. I think they did it as a message to say, hey, we can do this, just so you know. We don't remove a lot of people, but we will if it becomes a problem, if it becomes necessary, but also speaking to the idea of the advertisers. The advertisers don't really care. And at the end of the day, it's a reaction of customers, like you were saying, as it relates to the free market. They react to those people complaining about their commercials being in certain videos. But why were the people watching the video to begin with?
It actually almost seems like the shock value would be good for the advertisers.
well, but again, YouTube has a problem with advertisers. Advertisers did pull out. They had a massive exodus of advertisers. They lost hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And they were trying to get a way to get that back, and they had to placate them some way, and they had to say, look, we're going to be changing our platform so we don't allow certain things, so your particular advertisement is ensured is not going to be run on a video that's promoting some kind of hatred of race or particular ideology or something. That's what they were trying to get affected on YouTube, because they lost billions of dollars.
And when it comes to the advertisers, there's two P's that they have to always be cognizant of: profits and public opinion. If you're making a lot more profit because a particular video that you're advertising on, and you don't really have a lot of control over that, a particular video that you're advertising on YouTube, which is why you don't have control, it gives you a lot of profit because the video has shock value, but the video shock value causes you to now be associated with that video. Now, even though you've raised profits, you've now lowered public opinion. And if you've lowered your public opinion, that causes problems. Those two things have to always be in balance in some way when you are an independent organization of any kind. And because you have videos that, yes, they do have shock value and they do bring more money into those advertisers for a short while, you also now have those advertisers in the public eye going, oh, they're affiliated with this now, even
Chris,
if they're not.
The biggest advertiser on my channel right now is Mormons.org.
That happened with mine.
They don't
too.
give a shit.
I have flat earthers on mine.
My
When
recent
I saw the Book of Mormon musical, when I saw the Book of Mormon musical, they had a whole page on the back that was like, "You've seen the musical, now experience the life."
They embrace
That's
it.
good. I actually like the musical.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
But I
you
just
guys
thought it was
agree?
good.
So you guys agree that social media is kind of skewed left, and it probably takes a shit on the centrist and the right a little disproportionately? Is that what I'm getting?
That was my concern. That's why I think that YouTube has that responsibility to provide the equality from both sides, and I feel like it's sort of almost unequally executed because of that.
Well, again, though, what is it, YouTube allowing or not allowing people to do? For example, first of all, I don't think this made Alex Jones into a martyr. I don't think it's going to have any effect really on him whatsoever. He has other platforms. If anything, people just may stop watching him. But I don't think it's going to make his followers go, oh, look, this is exactly what Alex Jones was saying. Therefore, he put him into a godlike status. No, people that follow him are mostly, no offense, but people that mostly follow him or have something wrong upstairs to begin with, right? So they're just not educated. They're not critical thinkers. And I'm happy when people get out of that mindset and they realize, hey, you know what? Alex Jones is an entertainer. Not a very good one, in my opinion, but he's an entertainer. I don't take anything he says seriously. I don't think he believes 90% of the shit that he puts out there. But when you are putting something out there that does affect other people, for example, the families of Sandy Hook, it is atrocious for him as a person in a position of power for what he says to call an action for his followers to harass the Sandy Hook families. That is despicable. That is, by any reasonable definition, cyberbullying and using a platform to promulgate that.
Yeah,
that I find in itself a violation of TOS.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. You know what? We're all in agreement here. Just to add a little spice to this, let's just switch gears. We can come back to this, but let's just switch to Richard Spencer, who, as far as I know, has not incited to violence ever. And what happened to him during that interview? He got punched in the face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So,
which, by the way, I mean, I'm against anybody hitting him, although it is cathartic. But no, I'm not into violence. I don't think we should go out and be punching people. No, I strictly am against that.
We can all agree that was against the law. That was simple as that's assault.
I think it's morally wrong too.
Right, but would anyone applaud that behavior or do it themselves in the same situation?
I'd punch Suris, but that's because I like him. No, I don't think it's ever. I don't think any behavior like that is at any time acceptable.
Like,
I guess
let's put it this
I'm
way.
mostly asking Nathaniel and Jim. That would be the two that I would guess might be in support of that kind of behavior. Not to put you two on the spot, but
way to throw them under the bus, Jim.
Go punch a Nazi.
I think. Well, real quick, I would say that just to give me like 5 seconds on this other thing. First off, Alex Jones and InfoWars, on their website, it says, we'll delete your shit if we want to. And they say that. So to say anything about YouTube or Facebook or anything else is hypocritical.
Good point.
I would also say that Facebook, YouTube, they are under zero responsibility to show anything that they do or don't want to. And I'm happy that piece of shit is gone. Today, Uber, Lyft, all the major rideshare companies were like, F you, white supremacists in Washington, D.C. And they're absolutely 100% in the right to do that. I am of the opinion that white supremacists should go be put on a boat somewhere. But doing something illegal is wrong. Yes, that is absolutely true. If Jordan Peterson, though, or any of his other piece of shit people that he knows,
Hey,
says that. I'm sorry.
Was it TJ? You're coming in kind of weak.
Like, see, this is what I was talking about, though. The immediate, like, instead of
he's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit.
But then talk about why he is, if you think that. But saying he's a piece of shit isn't an argument, dude.
Which one? There's a couple pieces of shit we've been talking about.
I think we're talking about. Is this one Alex Jones that we're talking about?
Which piece of shit are we referring to at the moment?
Because there's a few pieces of shit.
Both of them. Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with Nathaniel.
I'm in agreement until he says put him on a boat. That's when we.
Well,
why not set him off the flat Earth?
Let's put them. Well, let's
push them off the flat Earth. No, sure they can live here. They can do their hate speech and shit like that because we live in a country
don't push the flat earthers off the flat Earth. Put them on a spaceship, fire them into space, and when they say, "Okay, we agree, space exists. Can we come home now?" Just don't let them out.
Yeah. Just keep that Delta V kicked in and let them serve, man.
I am against anybody like doing anything illegal like that. I have said that over and over again. But if somebody like on Tuesday, speaking of Sandy Hook, the lawyers for Alex Jones, and again, I suppressed my want to just call him piece of shit. So you're welcome. Literally got in an argument with the parents of Sandy Hook, the Sandy Hook victims, and they said simply because they said we need to see your birth certificate and the death certificate of your kids. I would go and punch Alex Jones in the face for that fucking nonsense.
Yeah, you would pay the legal price, but you know what? Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I understand. I understand the feelings. From an emotional standpoint, I'm with you, dude.
Yeah.
Like for example, if somebody said shit about like your daughters and stuff like my daughter, yeah, I would feel justified to punch somebody. I would suffer the ramifications, right? But I'd feel justified to do it. So I do get that. Yeah.
I would personally.
Not only that, not only that though, he was actually advocating to the families of the Sandy Hook's families to get their addresses and put their addresses out in public.
Oh shit!
It wasn't just him advocating that. His lawyers were too. The lawyers were seeking that. The lawyers were literally seeking to dox the Sandy Hook.
What the hell planet are we living on? The lawyers are advocating for that.
You think doxing should be against the law, Josh?
Yes, absolutely.
Huh, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I'm on board with that just yet.
What should be punched? What should be against
doxing?
The idea
doxing.
Of the right of privacy. You have a right to have your information released or not released at your own will.
What is privacy though? Because anybody's address, cell phone number can be found with a simple public record search.
See,
there's not much we have that's private nowadays. Now, maybe you might have a case for like a social security number and credit cards. But things that are personal to us, such as like our information where we live and telephone numbers, that's all public for the most part. If you know where to look, you can pay $65, $70 or whatever it is, and you get anybody's info.
If somebody, this is where we have the difference between legal ramifications and social ramifications. If somebody is known to be a doxer, I think there should be social ramifications where everybody just goes, okay, this guy's a piece of shit, ignore him.
Yes.
That I'm fine with. And as far as legal ramifications, I don't think there's much of a case that can be made because again, you can pay an agency to do that legally, get all that information pretty easily. People can figure out where I live and put dog shit on my front door, and it's not very hard for them to do it.
And they have.
It happens all the time.
Write a book on Islam and use a fake name, and then discover that your real name came out and see if you don't have some sleepless nights.
No, I understand there's concerns there, but the problem is when you're writing about Islam, stuff like that, you have that in the back of your mind that you are putting out something that could put your life in danger. Now, granted, you try to do everything in your power to not get that information.
My head's on a swivel now. My family's terrified.
No, and rightly so. Matter of fact, that's one of my arguments against this narrative that there's no such thing as reasonable Islamic phobia. Look if you walk down the street saying that Allah is gay, or something along those lines, or a picture of Muhammad, yeah, you're taking your life in your hands, even though you have the freedom of speech to do that. But there is a phobia there because there's a rightful phobia because people have died from that. So I totally get that. Yeah. I do. Trust me.
Okay, switching gears again. I'm just going to talk about college campuses, and I'll bring up a couple names. Even Sam Harris is now lumped into this intellectual dark web, they call it now. Stefan Molyneux, Steven Crowder. Come on, help me out.
Sargon of Akkad.
Sargon of Akkad. Yeah, I'm thinking the bigger ones though.
Sargon's pretty big.
Yeah. Who's the big one that? Oh, Jordan B. Peterson.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say they book. Let's say the young Republicans on campus pay for, fund, book. They book the venue. They got it all set up. They're at, let's pick a college, Berkeley, maybe a left-leaning college. You know, they do all the legwork. Now this is they book the venue. It's on campus. Does anyone think that should be shut down? And we see what's happened in the past with the flaming trash cans through the windows and pulling the fire alarms and the bullhorns, and we've seen it all.
But define shut down. That's not the campus.
Yeah,
that's individuals. Coming together.
Let's look at both. Should the institution itself shut it down?
Yes.
And then next question: should do you think? Well, they don't have a legal right, but do you think they have a cultural right? Just the populace in general to try to shut that down?
The institution has everything in their right to platform or deplatform whoever the hell they want, and there's only a certain amount of time in the educational year where you have these get-togethers and things like that, these events. So they want to have the best person for it. If they choose somebody else not to be there for whatever reasons, that's their prerogative. But I do think the student body should have a say. They should have input.
What's their state funded?
I don't understand.
I don't agree with that.
Okay. What obligation does a university have to platform somebody that's going to be advocating something along the lines of neo-Nazism?
Yeah, but the university is not they don't necessarily advocate it. There's plenty of venues on the campus.
But why would they put a platform something like that over somebody who's going to promote something like dealing with actual education?
Let Josh talk. Josh has something.
If they're publicly funded as an institution, they have a responsibility to not necessarily promote, but at least allow for the facilitation of different viewpoints.
Absolutely.
That's part of it.
What if it violates? What if it violates what you can go to school? Like you have a student handbook, right? Even at the University of Nebraska, which you should have brought up, Jim. They have a student there that is a neo-Nazi, right? And he is peddling hate all over the campus, and everybody at the school wanted him kicked out. He's a student there.
Not to put you on the spot, but could you define exactly what he's peddling, or just to give us an idea of what he's saying? Because like these flyers that were going around the campuses, like it's okay to be white. What would you think about that one?
Nothing. That's harmless.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but listen to Nathaniel's take on that. I bet he'll say something different.
Well, you know what it means. It's not harmless. You know exactly.
What if it were? What if it were just like, hey,
so white people aren't allowed to have an identity or be proud of our culture?
You know that, and that's nonsense.
It's not.
Sorry, Jim.
No, it's exactly the point of what everybody's trying to make of it. That's exactly the point it's trying to make.
I don't think that's actually the point of it.
No. See, it's not. It's not a point. It's a counterpoint. They are countering black people finally being able to be proud to be black and to be proud of where they've come from and the struggles that they've been through. And this is just white people countering that, saying, oh, well, you're proud. Oh, well, I'm prouder because I'm white.
No, I don't think it's that either, honestly.
From being proud of themselves?
No, it started with it's okay to be white as a trollish thing. It's basically just a big troll.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
but,
so I mean, I'm
far left ideologues would.
But we're allowed to troll, right? I mean, I have no problem with that. Again,
I'm not saying that it's illegal or that it should be illegal, but just like he was speaking on earlier, there are legal ramifications and there are social ramifications, and I happen to believe that there should be social ramifications for neo-Nazis and white supremacists.
I agree, but
I agree with that 100%.
Are true. It is okay to be white is a true proposition, and I'm very much into what is true and what is not true.
There's a difference between having a poster that says it's okay to be white, counterpoint, versus a poster that says it's okay to be a white supremacist. Now, if the underlying message of the organization, and they say, when we say it's okay to be white, we mean this, now the conversation's a little different. Now what the poster says has been clarified by the organization that printed out the posters, and now we have clarification. But the simple statement in and of itself, without any implications that's left up only to interpretation, is in and of itself harmless. If you interpret it one way and somebody else interprets it a different way, how do you know which one is right? That's where the clarification from the originator comes in. If the clarification comes from the originator that this is what they mean, and they do mean when we say it's okay to be white, we mean white supremacy, or it's okay to be white.
So if the originator of the phrase and of the propaganda, it's okay to be white, is a white supremacist, then it's okay to say that it's white supremacist.
I have to disagree with Suris. I don't think the origin makes a bit of difference.
You're saying it's a
that's a genetic fallacy.
No, yeah. The thing is that you're saying it's a counterpoint to black people being able to say that they have pride, right? It's not. That's not the counterpoint. The actual counterpoint is all the far left ideologues that drone on incessantly about how all white people are despicable, horrible monsters that have done nothing but oppress everybody and cause mischief everywhere they go.
I think that's hyperbole.
Dogs pissing on fire.
That's extreme hyperbole.
That is exactly what.
No, TJ's right. There are groups out there. I mean, there are Black Hebrew Israelites and various offshoots that actually advocate that the white man is the result of a genetic thing between aliens and demons. Right?
Sure, there are. There are
evil man.
Sure, there are.
So
there are Mormons that think that black people came because Cain decided to sin.
Right, but again,
well, no, actually, that's not correct. It was actually Noah's son that was cursed.
No, the curse of Cain started the entire thing.
The curse of Cain is the mark of Cain, and that was actually in LDS theology.
And the mark of Cain is considered the black skin in LDS theology.
Yes,
that's actually part of Mormonism. Steve is ex-LDS.
Yeah.
Steve is ex-LDS. Mr. Atheist has been on my channel talking about this as well. He's ex-LDS.
And Jim is a future LDS.
Oh,
didn't they change their mind?
He looked great in the carpet.
Changed his mind.
If that was the case, though, then when Noah and his sons were the only ones who left to procreate the earth, there would be no dark-skinned people. What I heard is that the LDSs believe that it was Noah's youngest son who was cursed for coming in on him drunk, naked, and passed out. And he was the one who was cursed and sent away and said to be the slave to his brothers and his
Lamanites.
Yeah, the LDS narrative is that when Cain killed his brother, God put a mark upon him to separate him from everybody else, knowing that what he did, so they didn't end up killing him, so he could walk forever. And
that's one thing we can all agree on.
That did happen.
There's also part of LDS theology that says that Cain survived everything and Cain is still alive to this day. That's another part of some subsects of LDS theology. You know what?
On the show Lucifer, that's the way it is, and I love that show, so it's got to be true.
So the idea that Cain didn't survive the flood, there is a bit of an apologetic for that. Now, granted, I think the entire thing is, of course,
he treaded water for a year.
He treaded water he didn't tread the water for a year. He just sat down and was like, well, I'm suffocating, but I can't die. Thanks, God.
Damn you.
If the amount of people that would have walked in on me drunk and naked and asleep were cursed, is
that most of your college years?
Well, if you were like Lot's daughters, you would just get the nearest father next to you drunk and fuck him.
True, which was definitely a story not written by a man with an agenda at all.
Can I go back to what Suris made a comment, because I think it needs to be touched on very distinctly, that just saying it's okay to be white, it's not the same thing as saying it's okay to be a white supremacist. I do not think it's okay to be a white supremacist. Do you have the right to be? Sure, but it's not morally okay. No. I think it's completely morally bankrupt, right? So I don't think the proposition it is okay to be a white supremacist is a true statement. That's my personal ethics, though.
It's a slippery slope, because if they start coming down on that type of hate, now it can be argued we hate ideologies. We as atheists, we don't hate people. We don't hate Muslims. We hate Islam, for example. But it's a slippery slope where are they going to come for us next? Are our channels going to get shut down for hate?
Most of my videos are demonetized. Well, not most, but quite a bit. In fact, just the other day, I put 2 videos out, and they were unlisted. And basically, they were just tests. One was the 1080p at 8,000 bits per second, 8,000, and the other one's like 10,000. I was just trying some different settings, right? Both unlisted. Not much difference between them at all. Guess what? One was monetized, one was demonetized. So I don't think there's any rhyme or reason by which YouTube goes around saying, hey, this video doesn't meet our standards for...
It's the same reason that H3H3 got hit as well. If anybody has seen what happened with that, he was doing a stream talking about Alex Jones, and it triggered something in the algorithm, and his stream got a strike, and he got an auto shutdown as a result. And now he can't stream. He got a community guideline strike. Just one.
I heard somebody mentioned that, but I looked and I didn't see anything on their channel but about it. So where did you get that? I'd like to validate that because I actually had heard that from someone else before.
That was actually on his Twitter. H3H3 tweeted that out after it happened.
But did he say what the community strike was for?
Let us see here.
It takes 3 strikes to get out of the game,
you can't stream.
It's 3 strikes to get out of the game, but if you have a strike, you can't stream for 3 months.
Correct. Okay, what about PewDiePie? He just, as an exclamation, while he was playing a video game online, he just said the N-word, and it was just as a, he wasn't, it just came out of his mouth. He didn't even, he just used it as an expletive.
Okay, there's a word that people don't like. I don't give a shit about that.
That's one of those things that you just don't do. I've seen some other streaming gamers, because I'm of course I'm into all that, but once you say that, that's almost kind of like the kiss of death, man.
That word doesn't just accidentally freaking slip out.
True.
I think there is a psychological Freudian.
If that just slipped out, there's something a little deeper in that guy, right?
Yeah, because if something like that slips out, it's more of a Freudian slip than anything else. It's already part of your vocabulary. It's something that you've already been thought. It's something, when you have reflexes like that, the reflexes are there for a reason. For instance, Jim, you were from the military, so you know for a fact that with a certain amount of training, your reflexes change.
Oh, my family, if they need to wake me up, they use a yardstick. They use something really long because I'll come up swinging.
Oh yeah, I had a friend who had a really troubled past, and anytime that he was spending the night over at my house, if I had to wake him up for anything, even breakfast, it was always poke, walk to the other side of the room, because his instant was he could pull a knife out of his pocket from his sleep and then lash it out at you very quickly, very easily. But that came from him having a very troubled past.
I just noticed half the people in this room are military too. Too many squids, though.
So I do agree.
Oh.
So I do agree, though, that there is a level of there's a level where that word was already in the vocabulary. Because even when I get at my most pissed at a game, and I've broken technology when I'm pissed at some of my games, and that particular expletive never comes out. I know that's an anecdotal bit of evidence and doesn't have a whole lot of supporting data behind it. But point is that I very rarely, unless I'm in a group of people where I know one person has a particular ideology against something, will something like that come out of any of them.
I did a live stream once with a doctor of molecular biology, Zachary Moore. We were talking about atheist billboard ads and how they were being put on buses, and buses go in the inner city. And so he got called into this community of church leaders, and they were all happened to be of a darker melanin content, let's say. And he got the 3rd degree. And I don't know how it came up in conversation, but in context, I did say the N-word live streaming, but I said it in context as just a word. Mm-hmm. He went high and to the left, and it left me flat-footed. I had no idea I was going to get that kind of reaction. And he wanted to shut down the conversation.
By the way, on the topic of what happened with H3H3, where they got shut down for speaking about Alex Jones, it was an algorithmic thing that knocked them down, because I just found the tweet from YouTube responding to H3H3 Productions, saying that they have removed his community guideline strike because it was an incorrect strike.
But they need to tell us what it was that triggered it. Their algorithm, they're so secretive about what is in their algorithm. Even the metadata is secretive.
Right? Yeah, and I do agree with that, because one, that would help us as content producers. Just saying, that would be really freaking useful for us not to have to throw darts at a board until one sticks and go, okay, that one worked. That would be wonderful.
They're proprietary. It's like code. You guys realize this.
Right. No, I understand they don't need to give us a source code, but they can at least say, okay, these are the certain things that will trigger the algorithm and why. Because, again, I've had things that are not even streamed, that are just not even out yet, that I just have ready to go. And already it's been demonetized. And there's nothing. I can even put nothing in it. No, just, the as the title. Nothing else. And sometimes it'll get demonetized. There's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah, the problem is that if they give you the framework, then theoretically, you know, we're crafty little mammalian engineers, man. You know, we'll find ways to circumvent whatever their framework is and still be just as abusive. You actually do see a lot of that in gaming.
Possible,
That's
but
fair.
they need to give us some.
That's why I think it's a good modeling system to as an experiment, obviously. But they removed it, so it's not as hard line as just saying we're going to set up these 10 rules, and if you break these 10 rules, you get a strike. It's the idea that it is an algorithm. It will learn. It will evolve. They change it weekly. That they created the CI/CD pipeline and the idea of site reliability and string, which is what I do. So they're going to correct it over time, and it will get better. So unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with hey, let's complain, let's get the strike removed, and they're going to get better because of it.
No, I agree. It's supposed to be a learning algorithm, and I think they wanted people's input. And I think one of the reasons why they said if you have more than 1,000 views, you can request a review was for that exact reason, Josh. They wanted to say, okay, this particular video was not something that should have been striked, and that way the algorithm can learn. Right. By the way, Jim, I would the whole with the thing with the N-word. I think that it even in context is one of those things that should be avoided at all costs. Right. I mean, that's why I don't say it on air.
It's 6 letters arranged in a particular order. If it's said without ill intent, just as an example, there's even a famous book by that name, and it breaks down the meanings of words, and that's the name of the book.
Go tell that to Papa John's founder. Yeah. Right. I mean, obviously you're allowed to do it, and you can make a commentary on certain things, but there's going to be ramifications for it. And my philosophy is, what's best just not to say it.
This again goes into the legal ramifications versus social ramifications thing. If society, which is where social ramifications come from, has agreed that this particular term has social ramifications, there's issues there. Now, granted, it's not a perfect system because society's not perfect. This is why people have such a huge issue with the word Islamophobe. They think that it's a horrible thing, and I'm sorry, there is a certain level of justified Islamophobia. I think we can all at least agree with that on some level.
Actually,
it's not a perfect system.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I could add to that real quick, there was an interesting occurrence that probably TJ and Jim might be aware of. But, I've done a lot of theological study into Islam. And, of course, philosophy or religion is kind of my thing. But I actually had a long-standing argument with this individual in another page that I moderate that both Jim and TJ are a member of. And it was just this most tragic thing because I'm trying to explain to him that Islam has rules. It has, ideals. The dogma says things very clearly.
Yes.
And every poll that has ever been done shows that some horrific portion of Muslims from around the globe, when polled, agree with the more egregious of the more nasty
death for adulterers, stoning for homosexuals.
Yeah,
I actually had a conversation. I had a conversation with one who, when I tried to call him out on his particular viewpoint, I said, "What if the adulterer was your sister?" And he said, "I would throw the first stone." And that was immediately when I went, "Okay,
oh shit!"
Yeah,
that's a 2013 Pew poll, and it's a disturbing percentage of enablers. Let's call them.
Yeah, let me rise in honor killings.
Well, any religion that is not necessarily applicable to modern times. They are like Christianity, for instance. If you were to poll 100 Christians and ask them what they thought about homosexuality, they would be against it. Or I would assume that the majority of them would, 90+%. And that all that is founded on is scripture that talks about how you should treat homosexuals.
How many of them would say kill that person?
Well,
I mean,
we know two people that will do that. We know two people who will do that, Anderson and Powell, and they both have congregations.
No, 3. You forgot Ben.
Of course.
Oh, wait, no, 4. We have Hovind.
Yeah,
yeah.
Real quick though, what I was going to finish with was
there are some.
The individual that I was talking to, he was from Belgium, and he was, oh no, you can't view somebody's ideology and then just as them being an adherent of said ideology, have some sort of pre-standard or assessment you've made of them already.
If you're not adherent to your ideology, why the hell have the ideology?
Yeah, pretty much. But this is what happened, guys. He told me that, his country was likely never to be attacked and that, Islamic attacks are rare. And I shit you not, the very next day, Belgium was hit with a terrorist attack right in his neighborhood.
Yeah, I think a lot of them deny reality. Look I agree that you shouldn't pigeonhole somebody because of their ideology. However, you can make a very good probabilistic argument saying that, if you're an adherent to this particular belief system, let's say like Islam, there is a higher chance of being killed for your beliefs if you go against what the rest of them believe. For example, if you are Islamic and you say, you know what, I don't believe in Allah, or I think that gays are fine. In certain countries, you could be killed for that, right? So that is a very true probabilistic argument to say that your certain ideologies are more inherently dangerous than others. I don't have a problem with that. That's not hate speech. That is a very legitimate probabilistic way of arguing something. Does that mean that all Islam is bad? No. Does that mean that that something that Islam should be like eliminated? No, I don't believe that either. But
what I was trying to what I was trying to get at earlier is that religions exist on a spectrum, especially religions with harmful ideology. You have Muslims that believe that, and you have Muslims that would not throw a stone but support that, and then you have more moderate Muslims who don't agree with that at all.
Respectfully,
there's such a thing as a moderate Muslim.
The number of moderate Muslims is extremely small because Islam has not had a schism or a fracture, a denominational fracture, the way that Christianity has, and it hasn't had all these secular societies grooming it. Into kind of like this legal parallel act, dogma. We've got Christians getting tattoos now and doing all this other crap, and
it's the same thing with Judaism, though. Judaism has been coddled by other civilizations, by other people. Throughout thousands of years, Jews have been coddled ever since being exiled. They've like now, you can't say the term Jew, without it being considered a slur.
There's actually more segments of Judaism than there are Islam, but that being said,
it's also been around longer, though.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Judaism, and this is just the raw truth of the matter, they mostly just want to be left alone. Like I'm not a Zionist or whatever you want to call me, but they really just want to be left alone.
Right.
If you read the Quran, and you take into mind, Nask, which is abrogation, and things like that, that's not what Islam is all about, and that's not what many of the adherents of Islam are all about. That's just
for instance, whenever you bring up, and I've brought this up before to people, and I've pointed out that Islam is not a religion of equality, even though it claims to be. Right. And whenever they say, well, the Quran does teach equality, and I say, okay, how? They say, well, abdication means that the older parts will get left out. So the newer parts, the newer parts advocate equality. And I was like, okay, so where's the verse that takes all of Surah 2 and Surah 4 out, which are my issues with equality? It is
Surah 9 is the most recent, and that's the most violent. So abrogation, it's
it doesn't. It's not a catch-all for everything.
It's like when Muhammad got older, he just got more pissed off and more vile.
Well, he went to war when he went to Medina. When he was in Mecca, he stayed pretty calm.
Right. And serious, equality isn't the be-all, end-all. Equity sometimes is more important than equality because there's a subtle and distinct difference between equality and equity. Equality, you'll have everybody being given a certain equal amount of opportunities, but however, there are people that are not on the same economics or standings, or that do need more help. Therefore, equity puts everybody more of an equal level playing field because they distributed it according to people's needs. Now, I know that sounds a lot like communism in some ways, but it's not. We do that all the time in our society.
That's what we did to the Native Americans. Is we had a certain level of equity where we gave reparations. Yeah. So yes, I understand.
Equity, I think, is almost even more important than equality sometimes.
No, and I agree with that. But that's the point about the point about Surah 2, Surah 4, and everything else in the Quran still stand even upon that platform. They stand just as strongly.
I'm just going to entertain this one live chat it's a quick tangent, and then we'll get right back on. I want to talk about burqa ban. I want to talk about what London is facing. But right now, just a quick tangent. Space Force, yes or no?
I would have joined.
No.
Nuts, man.
Yes.
That is the dumbest thing.
No, we don't need a space. Why do we need a sixth branch?
I have heard
What
him
purpose?
say so much dumb shit. That takes the.
My answer is
fucking-
take it to our
I
NORAD. We already
finally
have a
agree with
Space Force. It's
Nathaniel
called the
on
United
Yeah,
States
yeah,
Air Force.
exactly. We have
Why
no
do you
defense
want a space
system.
force after you not only defund parts of NASA, but after defunding parts of NASA, you also put a climate change denier as the head of NASA? What fucking point could you possibly have with a space force after you've illegitimized NASA?
I don't
been-
go ahead, man.
I've been traveling for a couple of days, so I haven't been able to catch up on the news. So I'm just wondering which planet we discovered oil on that we need a space force.
Gotta be it.
It's not even about the oil. It's about all the patches that say Space Shuttle Door Gunner. That
We're
people
going to
can
the
now
sun
wear.
tomorrow.
Right,
You know?
right,
Hell yeah, baby.
right.
No,
NASA.
NASA is
talked
not
about
a
having-
branch of the service, though. The
Yeah,
United
they're
States Air Force, anything that needs to be done in space militarily, the Air Force has it covered already.
Yeah, I gotta tell
So
you,
does
if
the
we need a
Army.
space
Be
force,
like
So,
that
so would deporting the flat earthers fall into the Air Force or NASA?
Well, now we're
there
immigration.
might be a time when we need a military
Okay.
space. This is not it. We're decades away
Hey,
from that. We spending the
seriously,
money
though,
on
can
quite
I-
a few other things.
Can I get you guys to think about something real quick?
Sure.
No, probably not.
Okay. Hey, this is a panel mostly of atheists, right? So I'm expecting some
All
sort of
atheists.
objective thought here. Yeah.
I'm, I'm,
so-
I'm the odd man out, but whatever.
I don't think that this
Sure.
this space force, I don't think it needs to be grown to any significant number. I mean, we're not talking about like even Marine Corps size, you know what I mean? But the fact is that I think at some point China and Russia are going to be able to launch, some sort of kinetic weapon system or something like that. I know that sounds like fear mongering, but really it's just the next tactical step.
It's not fear mongering. It's actually pretty easy. If you have an orbital platform that has just metal rods,
Yeah, kinetic rods.
the amount of damage that kinetic metal rods, and patents have already been filed on those, by the way.
Yep.
So
Look,
that's,
I
they're not science fiction.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's not fear mongering. There's a definite fear of not only just kinetic weapons, but EMP weapons, right?
Yes.
So but I don't think Space Force is the way to go. We already have things in play where we have defenses for those kinds of things. What he's suggesting is basically make Space Marines, which would make Von Helton very happy. Don't get me wrong. But he already called and asked if he could join. They said no.
Do you have any idea how many lance corporals and specialists right now are furiously masturbating in a bathroom somewhere at the opportunity to switch
It's
branches?
true.
Wait, I don't even understand. You have a vice
No.
president who thinks the earth is going to be like destroyed any day now by the second coming of Jesus because he's a younger creationist. Why is he worried about Space Force?
Man, he's just playing his.
He is.
He's just doing his job as the good boy.
Yep.
Man, what I find it crazy is that 6,000 years ago, the Tower of Babel was man's doom, and now God's chosen one is wanting to send us to the fucking moon and shit. Like, I mean, it's just.
Well, you have to understand the difference here. The Tower of Babel, there was a chance of us speaking multiple languages and coming together to do anything. Trump only speaks one language. Stupid.
Barely.
and he doesn't even speak it that well.
He knows words. Come on.
Okay, back to London.
Wait, no.
We're talking
I
about
know.
Trump. This is fun.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
go
was going
ahead.
to bring Trump up actually. Can I
Go ahead.
bring him up real quick? Okay, because I was talking about that because I was thinking about it, talking whatever in my brain. It's me, and we're talking about Twitter, right? So everything that I'm going to leave my opinion of the orange fucking Washington says on Twitter is in the archive, National Archive, as written by the president. The things that he says on Twitter are divisive. By the way, Mike Pence is there because he knows that Trump ain't gonna survive for 2 more years. And he puts them on there. He hasn't been kicked off of Twitter yet. Should the president of the United States, who knows if he's violating First Amendment shit, like he's like stand or be suspended indefinitely without pay, things that he can't say as president because that interferes. Should he be left on Twitter, and should he be able to say the things he is?
I believe he's violating terms of service, just like many people who are still active on Twitter are. I don't believe that it's just him. I believe it's people who are popular, people who are who have shock value, people who really stir up the Twitter feed, you know, and they're going to leave them on because they're good for business.
But should the president be able to, though, with all of the power he has?
No, absolutely not. No, should he be able to? No, but is he going to be enabled? Absolutely.
Yeah, the problem is that he's no longer, he's still a private citizen, but he's still responsible to the people. And unfortunately, he is the leader of the free world. And I don't think making policy via Twitter is something that was a smart move. I think, does he have the right to as a private citizen? Sure, but he's in the public. He's not in the public sector right now, right? So I think there are some rules that need to be applied. And if anything, one of his advisors should man up and get some balls and say, "Look, sir, we need to take your phone away from you." But I'm enjoying his tweets, so I'm hoping they don't stop.
Don't get me wrong. I enjoy his tweets for the same reason I enjoy Ken Ham's tweets. I need my daily dose of fucking stupid.
Sure. And that's fine, but we're talking, and by the way, he's no longer the leader of the free world. He lost that shit, and we all know that.
In name only.
Somebody in Europe owns that now, probably Angela Merkel. Yeah, but sure, Ken Ham saying stupid shit, which I haven't been blocked by him yet, which is upsetting. It's a little bit different. I got to do more. I don't know. It's a little bit different than the president saying something stupid, which he does every day, not just with his mouth bones, thinking the F-35 is literally fucking.
No, it's like every single time he takes a shit, both orally and.
Well, the problem is that it diminishes us in the eyes of the world, right? Because here they see the President of the United States making some extremely stupid statements that are just disseminated to the public that don't seem to go through his cabinet or his filters, because that's what you have a cabinet. That's why you have advisors, right? Presidential advisors advise you what to do so you don't say stupid shit. He bypasses all of that.
Trump doesn't have advisors. Trump has presidential suggesters.
Yep.
That he doesn't listen to.
And to be fair, he's gone through so many of those that he probably doesn't even remember the name of the current one that's going to be around for this week.
Right. And
you want that job?
Yeah, and that's the problem is that whenever he comes across somebody in his cabinet or in the White House administration that is not thinking parallel to him or anywhere close to parallel, then they're out. And that's the problem, is he's creating his own echo chamber of bad ideas.
Yeah. And he loved Alex Jones, by the way. He was on his show.
Oh yeah, he was.
He thinks he's a very successful man.
And by the way, whoever mentioned earlier that I don't hate anybody. Oh no, I freaking hate Donald Trump with every ounce of my being. It goes down to my DNA. I'm glad my children are going to inherit this from me. It's not a mutation. It's part of the fucking human genome now.
So you're not gonna
Nathaniel had hair 2 years ago, and then Donald Trump got elected.
It's crazy how it went.
Donald Trump got elected, and you were like, "That man needs a toupee. I might also need a toupee."
I'm just not ashamed of mine.
We're trying to get us back on track, and Nathaniel,
that was on track.
Yeah, you said something about you were dejected a little that you were not yet blocked by somebody, and who is it?
Ken Ham.
Okay, so just to turn this back to the topic, I got blocked recently by Steve Shives. I don't know if you all know.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. So, with regard to free speech, do you feel like the left tends to create their own echo chambers more so than the centrists and the right?
No.
Isn't my freedom of speech to say that Steve Shives is a complete pussy? Because that is my freedom of speech that I think that he is. And I never even talked to the guy. Never even talked to the guy, and I'm blocked. And by the way, I'm blocked by Will Wheaton too, another person that can't handle criticism.
Shut up, Wesley.
Shut up, Wesley.
I want to hear Jim and Nathaniel specifically on this.
Jim, if I can go first, if that's all right. For the amount of times that I've been called a snowflake who needs my fucking safe space or whatever it is, I give facts. Okay, and Jim, if you ever look at my newsfeed or whatever, I give fact. I thoroughly research most everything that I say, and I delve into this with statistical analysis, and I make opinions based on that. And for all the times that I've been called a snowflake because I like reality, I have been blocked simply for saying I think you're wrong by so many people who, for some reason, only like non-PC stuff whenever the idiot in charge is saying it. So I don't know that I don't know that it skews right or left.
You're saying you get blocked more than you block?
Oh, I don't block anybody.
I haven't blocked anybody on mine
Do
either.
you feel like you're an anomaly?
Well, that must be nice.
left?
Yeah, I have to block people.
Do you feel like the left does tend to block people more?
No, I think it's like spread out. I think it's a personality thing more than anything else.
Yeah.
Like me, I don't block people.
I don't think the number of people blocking each other is like skewed one way or the other. I think Nathaniel's right about that. Like he and I are friends on Facebook, and we fundamentally disagree on lots.
We are,
but yeah,
not anymore now.
I haven't blocked anybody yet.
Me, sir. Yeah, you haven't blocked me yet. Golly, I mean, come on.
Do we argue on there?
No, I don't think we've ever had any. No, I don't think we've had any arguments.
I got 20 people that I blocked on Facebook, but I also have people blocked because if not, you're going to be inundated. I'd rather have conversations with people. They're not trolling, right? Because I block trolls. At a certain point,
there's a difference. Yeah. You have a right. You have a right to not listen, and blocking somebody is not listening. And you always have the right to not listen. In whatever capacity that takes, whether it's not tuning into their channel, blocking their Twitter feed, etc., you always have the right to just not listen to somebody. That's
but it's kind of funny, sir, because most of us thrive on controversy. None of us would actually be where we are if there wasn't somebody who didn't think we were wrong, right?
I would love if I was out of a part-time job. That would be great.
This is reality here. So I'm not against people saying, "Hey, Steve, I think you're wrong," but they do it the appropriate way. Like when Jim and I had our discussion way long ago, right? He's like, and even TJ was there. Like, Steve, I don't think I agree with you. But I'm like, let's have a conversation. It was civil. It was productive. I got Courtney to go on my side, so I won. But that's how you handle these kind of discussions, right? But if somebody comes after you and says, hey, you know what, you're wrong, and all they want to throw at you is invective, misinformation, non-credible sources, and they do so in a way that just inundates you with messages, eventually you've got to say, you know what, this is not the type of conversation I'm willing to have. And you're done with it. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to bind your time.
There's people who comment on my channel who I will give a certain amount of comments a certain amount of time, but once I've gotten to the point where I've shown them every reason why it's wrong to be a goddamn young Earth creationist, Antonio Smalls, at that point they stop receiving my time.
Okay, so at the same time, let's get back to the Alex Jones type subject. Is it okay to tell somebody that when they come across somebody inciting violence or inciting, people to dox the families of Sandy Hook's children or what have you? Is it okay to tell those people to keep scrolling if you don't like what you see?
You can tell anybody anything you want.
You appropriately
right. But what I'm saying is it okay to tell somebody, well, they have the right to say that if you don't like it, keep scrolling, or do you think that
I would say if you don't like it, challenge it.
You appropriately target the offending speech, and anything else that they say shouldn't be a target.
But Jim's talking about something that incites violence. That's different.
Yeah, then
he's talking about the offending speech.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you challenge it. You
target that.
Yeah. No, I would report that. That's illegal.
How do you?
That's what I'm saying.
How do you challenge inciting violence? How do you challenge somebody like the Hillsborough Baptist Church?
Westboro.
Or Westboro, I'm sorry.
Hillsboro is right down the road.
They don't incite violence.
That's the subchapter.
I don't think they incite violence. I could be wrong, but other than eternal torture and
I don't think they're
damnation,
inciting violence either. Their shtick is basically just being outrageous for the sake of being outrageous, like picketing funerals, right? Things that we would find to be morally reprehensible because we are all moral people. That we would not go out and picket a funeral of somebody's dead relative, right? Because I find that to be
moral agents. I don't necessarily.
Yeah, we're moral agents.
I would never take action against that.
I don't think the Westboro Baptist Church are actual moral agents anymore. I think they've long since lost.
Right. Well, I'm more referring to conspiracy theorists saying that there are people who don't have these children, that they are crisis actors, and it's actually and they're not necessarily telling people to go out and do this, but it's resulting in people who so firmly hold these beliefs because they've listened to this drivel endlessly that they actually feel ballsy enough to go up to these people and demand to see birth and death certificates.
Should we stop the production of all Qurans and all Bibles?
Yes.
Are you asking me that?
I'm asking you that. Should we stop the production of all Qurans and all Bibles? Not as in like an ideological. The world would be a better place if, because I believe the world would be a better place without those books personally.
Okay.
Well, but should the companies that print those books, do they have a moral responsibility to not print those books because those books incite homophobia, violence? Run the gamut.
I believe that socially, yes, that it is morally reprehensible.
I would stand in the picket line with the Christians to allow them to keep the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I have to go with you. I don't think it's a moral issue whether it should be if Bibles should be produced or not. I mean, look, if there's a market for them, if people want to read them, then it's freedom right there. So I mean, the problem that you have is if you start saying things like we can't allow the production of Bibles, then anytime you promote things that promote any kind of atheism, for example, the satanic coloring book, right? The great big kids satanic coloring book, which I thought was kind of cute. Now, I know Darren Deicide from the Church of Satan was a big fan of it, but he doesn't like Temple of Satan. But I thought it was a cute coloring book. Should we block that as well? Because if you block one, you got to
you have to apply it to all. You can't be selective.
Right. And so I think that you walk a very fine line when you say that we have a moral responsibility not to print something.
But if we're only applying it to harmful ideologies, why would we apply it to the Church of Satanism?
I don't. Yeah.
Because when you have to draw the line somewhere, you have to define harmful. Once you define harmful, my version of harmful and your version of harmful might be different. My version of harmful and a Christian's version of harmful will definitely be different.
Yeah, reading the Bible, reading Quran to me is not harmful.
Teaching a kid that they're broken.
That's harmful.
You're right.
They're broken and that they're going to burn in hell, in my opinion, is harmful. But legally, it's okay.
Mine too. I think a lot of it's child abuse in some ways.
Right.
But that's my ethical concerns. It's
not the book itself. It's the ideology that it's true.
Right. Well, I mean, I can read a Batman comic book and not be scared that Batman's going to break into my window because I know Batman isn't real. Just like I can read the Bible.
So you are saying that you are a criminal then, because that's the only thing that
why would Batman
attack you? Yeah, you're saying then you are a criminal because if Batman were to break into,
oh my gosh,
you're an
you know what? Batman's just a jerk. Okay, but that's a totally different story. That's a totally different story. Okay, But okay, so I don't believe that Batman is real any more than I believe that God is real. So just reading the Bible isn't harmful. So no, I don't believe that you should take Bibles out of production because just reading it isn't harmful. But believing it and teaching it to be truth is what's harmful.
Okay.
So, a question that rises from that, if I can go back to Germany, they don't allow Mein Kampf.
Right.
So just reading Mein Kampf, you don't turn into a Nazi, right? Right. So where would the United States draw a line with something like that, especially with the people that are?
Well, we already allow.
Well, America's predicated on free. America's predicated on freedoms that Germany doesn't have, and other countries don't have. We are unique in the world at the amount of freedoms and liberties we have.
Yeah, having lived in Germany, they also don't let you do the Nazi salute. Yeah. But just like Steve said, that is what makes us a better nation. And I loved it there. I love Germany. I thought it was great, but it's not the U.S.
In America, it isn't just that we can read Mein Kampf. It's not just that we can have these ideals as a person, but in America, you are free to hold rallies where you are uniting the right, where you are promoting neo-Nazism. And I mean, it's just not.
It's a right of assembly. Look. If they're going to promote, they're promoting an ideology to assemble, and they're saying, "Hey, we're going to get together and we're going to promote a narrative that white supremacy." Okay, you know what? You do have under the rule of law the right to do that. Now, if you say, "I want to promote white supremacy and we should go out and kill black people," at that point, your rights are gone. You should be arrested, and that's hate speech, and that is a violation.
Now you've got
an incite to riot and incite to commit a crime.
Yes.
Well, that's what they do, though. The things they say while they're there.
A lot of
those things need to be addressed, right?
It's the undertones, like they're not saying it, and that's the reason they don't say it outright sometimes.
Agreed.
It's because they don't want the legal reprisals, so they'll march around doing their little goose steps.
But the fact of the matter is that one girl was killed last year, and dozens of others were injured, and yet they allowed them to petition for a permit to rally again this year tomorrow.
That was not the guy that drove over that girl was not part of the protest, right?
No, he was.
He identified
an outstanding anomaly should not represent the entire whole. Yes,
It wasn't just the one death. I'm talking about all the injuries combined as well.
So next time Jordan Peterson wants to come to Berkeley and the Antifa throw the flaming trash cans through the windows and pull the fire alarms and rough people up. So what's good for the goose, right?
But see, Antifa isn't applying for a right to rally. If Antifa was applying for a right to rally for a second time after the first annual Antifa rally resulted in a death and several injuries, then I would have a problem with that.
Yeah, a good point.
And they're marching around with, love those sticks they have.
Tiki torches.
Yeah,
the companies that made those tiki torches were not thrilled.
$4.99 at Walmart. Don't knock it, bro.
There were no mosquitoes in Virginia that night. With saying things like Jews will not replace us, and they're yelling white supremacist things. And
they're saying
not,
blood and soil.
You know what blood and soil means?
Yeah,
yeah, of course.
There is no denying. There's complete clarity with what they were saying and what it meant. Just
the
like
reality, though, is that hate speech is free speech. I know there's this motto out there: hate speech is not free speech. The Supreme Court has said
from the government.
The Supreme Court has said that hate speech is covered under the First Amendment. That is from the Supreme Court.
I agree with that.
So there is no legal ramifications just for having hate speech. Now, it could be a mitigating factor, like in crimes, right? You can have hate crimes, but hate speech itself is not a criminal offense.
Well, on the flip side of it, Nathaniel,
the Supreme Court said no.
On the flip side of it, Nathaniel, how about a Malcolm X? I'm rewinding the clock a bit, but a Malcolm X by any means necessary type of protest. Well, instead of blood and soil and the Jews will not replace us. How about by any means necessary?
The ideals of Malcolm X, who is from Omaha, by the way, so I know all about Malcolm X being from Nebraska. The ideals of Malcolm X were completely opposite of the ideals of
in the sense that it was directed at white people instead of Jews.
Well, no, these are things that I'm against.
Oh, okay.
I was saying they're against. Yeah, interruptions are not okay. They were opposite.
That's strike one. I got my first strike.
They were opposite of Martin Luther King at the exact same time, right? And so those kind of things, no, not by any means necessary. No, not at all. But there are, if you are the more than a few municipalities and cities and even counties throughout the country this past year have received the permit request from these pieces of shit and have denied them. And yet the capital of our country, which represents us in every way, whether we like it or not, has decided to invite even more white supremacists to join them at Congress, which is where they work. That is, to me, I don't understand. Sure, it's your legal right to be a racist piece of shit. But when the United States government, basically, the Washington, D.C., I realize it's not the government, but the United States, the Capitol says, sure, you can come here. What does that say about where we're at moralistically and as a nation?
Good point. You guys mind if I switch to one little tangent? As long as I got too left-leaning here. Sure. I've got to take this opportunity. Okay, here we go. An executive from Apple. This was about maybe 2 months ago. I don't have her name. No, I don't. Okay, so I just want to get your all's take on this. She was an Apple executive. She's the head of diversity. She's vice president of diversity for Apple. She was forced to apologize publicly. This was about 2 months ago. You might remember. Here's her tweet. Ready? Diversity is the human experience. I get a little bit frustrated when diversity or the term diversity is tagged only to people of color or to women or the LGBT community. There can be 12 white, blue-eyed, blonde men in a room, and they are going to be diverse too because they're going to bring a different life experience and different life perspective to the conversation.
I mean, yeah, if you want to get into a textbook definition of diversity, yes, that is what diversity is. But when the term diversity is spoken, in any sort of modern day context, it's
almost exclusively about race at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She knows what diversity means.
Yeah, I think she's trying to water down the
name?
term.
Denise or something. She knows exactly what diversity means.
Which is how I started off this show. I said that I might have failed because I did. Admittedly, I did make an attempt. I just want to, for the record, that I did make an attempt to get a little more diversity of color and biological sex into this conversation. One was busy, and I'll just go ahead and say his name, Peter Mosley. If you're listening, listen, I'd love to have you on the show. He would be perfect for this panel. He's a person of color. He writes for Pathos, and this would have been just awesome to have him on. But I made an attempt, but like I said, I did succeed in getting a wide diversity of ideas. I think I did. I would have liked a little more. I think we're skewed a little center.
Did you invite
but
Ken Hovind? If not, then we're not that diversified.
No, we're already skewed. Yeah, true.
No, I know. Look, all she's doing is watering down the term to mean absolutely nothing, because we all know what diversity means in social standings. And now, I'm not a fan of standpoint theory, especially feminist standpoint theory. I think it's absurd that knowledge and epistemology is contingent upon race or color. I think that everybody has equal opportunity to have knowledge. But I do think there's something to be said by people having different understandings of things based upon their heritage and their life experiences, and that is contingent upon skin color and diversification and gender. These things do all play into that. So I do believe that should be a diversification from those points of views. Sure.
I thought I was going to get someone taking the bait on that one. I guess not. Okay.
No,
shit.
No. More intellectually honest.
you got us.
Sorry to disappoint you.
One more thing.
Blood sports.
An earlier live show, I forget who I was on with. Nathaniel was in the live chat, and he had a lot to say about the NFL taking a knee. So if there's anything you'd like to get out now that you're on the show, I don't mean to put you on the spot right away, but we talked about Kaepernick and everyone and the pumping the fists. And now remember, the NFL is a private organization. We've already been down that road, but Nathaniel, this is your chance. I know you were very active in the live chat.
Yeah, well, I'm also very active with this movement as well. I have the advantage of being a white guy born in Alaska, raised in Nebraska. So I have never, and I live in Dallas now, but I've never once in my entire life been subjected to the things that minority Americans, especially black males, are in this country. And we've seen it now, though. We see it almost on a daily basis. And, I'm proud to say that I've marched with BLM. I'm proud to say that I know exactly what people say when they say Blue Lives Matter. And they say you don't need to do this on this stage. No, that's exactly where they need to do it. When you want to give a platform to something, this is a time where where individuals who have been affected by this, whether or not now or earlier in their lives, have been affected by these things. They have finally an opportunity, and they're not pumping their fist, by the way. It's not like that. It's raising their fist.
Oh, right.
And then they're protesting this police brutality, which is a thing. It's systemically racist. We've seen that across the board. They are absolutely, in my opinion, doing the right thing because it's bringing attention to something that absolutely exists. And then people are trying to diminish this and say it's about some flag or something, as if a flag has feelings. No, it is bringing attention to the fact that while we're singing the national anthem, it sure as fuck doesn't represent Black Americans.
And I would also like to add that it also does not represent the troops. I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a Navy vet, proud to have fucking served. So everybody's told
me. Squids, surrounded by squids.
Yeah, all I see is ink trails everywhere, man.
It's awesome.
Suck it up, baby. Suck it up.
The only argument that
I'm starting to think this is a gay nightclub.
What was your rate, Nathaniel?
I'm sorry that we are, like, as far as squids go, like the only mythical creature that was like able to overpower everybody else's navy.
Nathaniel, what'd you do in the Navy?
Well, I started on the flight deck of aircraft carriers, and then I became a religious program specialist because I was.
Oh, man, you were an RP. You were an RP.
That's
great.
Really?
Oh man.
I got. Never mind. I'm not going to go into this. I told Jim whenever I was on his show that I wasn't going to get into details.
Gotta say, this means that the entire conversation will shift to a giant. This is what happens every single time I have Steve and Jim on my channel. There's 15 minutes.
Well, I was a nuke, so everything I have is classified.
I'm not going. I told Jim. Jim tried to convince me for like 35 minutes one night, and every single time I was like, I'm not going to talk about my military service. I don't like talking about it. I have a lot of bad memories, and I have things that I still like see today. I am not going to talk about it.
And like Steve said, now atheists are, like it or not, 15 points higher IQ than the rest of the population. Every military person in here had an MOS or a rating, depending on how you want to say it, something that required a little bit of brain power, a little bit of gray matter. And what comes with that is a TSSCI clearance usually, which 90% of what we want to talk about, we can't.
Oh, but Jim, that's bigotry. Talking about the average IQ scores
of bigotry of
certain groups
high
being,
expectations
higher than others. Yeah, that's bigotry.
What are you talking about? I have an IQ of 75. That's good, right?
I can tell you right now, there are some people that I know that have such low IQs that if you put them in the nuke program, they wouldn't have made past the third day.
I was in an MOS that it was designed for people that failed the nuke program.
Are you sure if we threw Gary in the nuke
waste
by the first day?
Right.
All the Arabic, Russian, Korean, and Spanish linguists in the Navy and the Marine Corps, not all of them. I would say about 70% of them are nuke drops.
And a lot of the cooks.
Yeah. Oh, well. No, you don't drop that far down. You go to something else pretty damn intelligent. Okay, here we go.
Did that, Jim, does anybody like disagree with me regarding the players?
No, I had one fundamental disagreement. Well, it goes back to, because it's the libertarian side of me speaking. The NFL absolutely has the right to make you stand or you get suspended.
Yeah,
sure.
They own you.
Yeah,
they own you. They have a right to
now.
They own
like
you.
I said,
that multi-million-dollar contract for a reason, and there's a lot that it entails, and that happens to be one of it.
Yeah, branding is huge in the military, or something in the sports too. I mean, you don't want a team that makes their brand look bad because there's money to be made there. That's why the owners have the team. That's why there's investments in the teams.
Well,
so that's why anything that could be construed as something that can devalue the monetary value of the team, the owners can make those decisions. You're damn right.
Okay, let me ask this question that's rarely asked. Is the NFL guilty of monetizing national symbols?
I don't. There's no copyright on the flag or the anthem. That's open.
No, there's not. But they do many things. They do many things that violate U.S. flag code that they gain.
Yes, they do all the time.
Oh yeah. Okay, but the same thing can be said with "In God We Trust" on the money. It's ceremonial and it's been enshrined for so long.
Yeah.
Well, that's their justification.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's a bad idea for an American sports organization, whether it's MLB or the NFL, to stick really close to their patriotic underpinnings. If that makes sense. There's no reason.
But at risk of violating U.S. flag code, isn't that a little hypocritical?
I mean, yeah, maybe some sergeant major needs to go down there and bring flag code or something.
Just for the record, the flag that you're flying on your wall is correct. The Union is in the top left corner, and it's being flown correctly.
Right. Yep. But it's not just that. It's not just the flag being displayed horizontally on the ground, or I'm sorry, parallel to the ground. It's them monetizing it in ways of advertising. They're putting it on Budweiser's putting it on their beer cases. The NFL's putting it on their T-shirts. They have it on socks. They have it on underwear.
That's a violation of flag code. You're right.
Yeah.
There's actually an issue that I brought up. I'm from a military family, both Navy and Air Force, and then we have one Marine. And there's
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was about to say every village got its idiot, but
and I know I'm the dumbest guy in the room too, so I perpetuate the stereotype.
It's good, man. It's
Jim, don't even. I'm the dumbest guy in this room. I'm the dumbest.
Okay, I'm the
and
second.
youngest.
I'm okay. We're not.
Our village idiot is also our IT guy.
So, but in my family, whenever they were almost all universally against the kneeling for the flag, or not kneeling for, but the NFL kneeling. And whenever the flag was brought up in conversation, I actually brought up the flag code violations to them, and that was almost always just swept under the bus in conversation.
Of course,
time.
They don't like
because
reality.
it's not convenient.
No, it's not convenient. It's the same thing where like my aunt was like, "Oh yeah, I'll support your channel. I'll go ahead and like the reason we were able to afford heading to the Faithless Forum, which is where I met Jim, was because I had a family member who was able to help. But anytime we have a conversation where I'm like, the Jehovah's Witnesses do this, the conversation stops. It stops immediately. Even if it's a religion she doesn't agree with, as soon as it is religion in general, the conversation stops completely. And I'm like, but why? She had an issue with she has very, what's the best way to say it? There's some views that she has espoused that I would say are almost fascist. And she's like, no, if you're in America, you need to do this. I'm like, if you're saying I'm in America where freedom is like paramount and I need to do this, I'm no longer in America.
Right.
Well, but even when it comes to like the code violations for the flag, look at, as individuals, I can wear a flag if I want to. I can do anything I want with a flag. Matter of fact, I think a constitutional ban that remember they wanted to say that if you burn the flag, it was going to be a constitutional thing, that it was against law. I'm against something like that. I think you should everybody do what you want with the flag. However, if you're in a ceremony type thing and you are disrespecting the flag, that's a completely different thing, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, as individuals, we have the right to do something, but these players, they're paid to play. They're paid not to be spokespersons unless,
you're right.
Spokespersons for what?
For whatever they're advocating for. They're saying they're not there to say I'm for or against a particular candidate, or I don't support our president, or anything like that.
If they are paid to play, then why are they standing there at attention with their hand over their heart, perpetuating, politics?
Because that's what the code says to do.
That might be what the organizational standard is.
Right.
Every organization standards.
But there's nothing in the NFL. As a matter of fact, just until recently, the NFL players would stay in the locker room until after the anthem was finished.
Yeah, and the military paid millions of dollars to bring them out on the field. But go ahead, Dennis. Go ahead, man. I know.
I just wanted to say something. I just wanted to say something real quick because Steve made a good point about that might be the organizational standard, right? So, as this is anecdotal, so it might not carry as much weight as I'd like, but I had a job for a while in the oil field, and here's the thing about oil field workers. They're good guys. They're hard workers. They love them some America. They're Second Amendment supporters for the most part. Now, these guys get together in these groups to work on these oil rigs, and most of the time before every shift, you are to bow your head, take your hard hat off, and they lead a prayer. Organizationally, they say, we're going to have a prayer. But you know what, though? They don't tell anybody, you have to do this thing, right? They say, as a group, we're going to get together, and people are going to take their... I'm an atheist, so when I would be in these groups, I would just kind of like stand there. But I was respectful of what the organization wanted to do when we were on the job. They didn't force me. No, but it's freedom. I have a freedom of conscience, right? I have a freedom of conscience. So my conscience told me I don't agree with these things. I don't support, making people pray.
Did you increase your chances of getting fired for that?
No, it didn't. No, because the simple fact is, as long as you didn't disrupt what they wanted to do with their, 2 minutes or 3 minutes before every shift, there was no backlash. They didn't say, oh, because you don't want to do what we want you to or what we think you should do, we're going to either blacklist you or take away your job opportunities or see. And that's the thing that I like. have noticed that things that where I used to be on the left leaning have pushed me to the right or to the center, as it were. But you know, I guess everybody on the far left considers anybody right of them right wing now. But that's where I've like kind of like migrated, because I'm like, I see on both extremes, if you don't toe the line, if you don't do or say or think, it's like this wrong think idea. Like if you don't think the way we think you should think, you have people getting their jobs taken from them, blacklisted in their careers. So what people are essentially saying, like radicals on both sides, I think do this, is that we don't think that you're worthy of existing. You shouldn't be able to take care of your family. You shouldn't be able to live if we don't deem what you say or think to the community's approval. And I didn't get any of that from these guys. To me, it just seems like it's.
Did you ever not? Did you ever not like? Did you ever decide to not pray with them and walk away?
I didn't. I just didn't participate. I didn't take my hat off, or I didn't bow my head, or
did any of them go, "Oh, hey, that's that TJ guy"?
No,
he's that
none of
them.
them.
But it's a stigma. You stigmatize yourself.
Yeah, there is a stigma attached to it. Look, I was never big into prayer when I was growing up. I went to some Christian organizations, even most of the time when they were like doing some prayer, I was just looking around going, this is really not my thing. But very, very rarely did somebody make an issue about it. But it did happen occasionally, right? I'm just like,
it's not just about making an issue out of it. Like when it comes to an organization, wanting to do something that's not necessarily harmful, and that, you do have, freedom of conscience, your freedom of thought. You don't have to be in that prayer zone with them inside of your head. But at one point, somebody's beliefs are going to be manifested into reality in some form or another, whether it be harassment, or it could be something as extreme as religion. In religion, you can be convicted of thought crimes even. I mean,
that's what religion is.
I think it's the same with just the far left ideologues, just as much as it is religious people.
Sure, and extremists exist on both sides.
Extremists,
absolutely exist. But the question that I would have with that, and I'd like to also kind of swing it back over to the players doing their thing. But I wonder if a person who was in management was now obviously by privacy laws, and I believe it's the Section 7 and stuff like that those kind of things can happen, and we don't have to attend them regardless of religious affiliation or non. So because it's a private company and we can make our own decisions, absolutely. But if a person in a small circle of employees decides not to participate, and the person that's leading the prayer is somebody who is in some sort of leadership capacity, I could certainly see where that would have possibly, depending on their level of extremism, to call it that could affect your career. That's the reason I work for a company.
Bias exists. Yeah,
I work for a company that is run by two fairly religious fellas, and I've worked my ass off, and where I am today is because of what I've done, and none of them will ever find out that I'm an atheist. And that sucks, by the way, and that's the reason I fucking march. But I think that there's something to be said for that, with the idea that especially in those types of scenarios, to where it's like we're in a small group of people who are friends, maybe as colleagues, and now it's like I choose not to participate in your prayer that you do every morning. What is the possibility that could happen to me? Speaking about maybe my career now. What happens to my career?
Can I ask you a question then, Nathaniel?
You can ask me.
Well, I was trying to figure out, like, so you think, like, so the leading in the prayer thing, you think the issue is you feel like it's a way for someone who differs from you ideologically to draw out dissenters, maybe to identify them?
No, not at all. No, I'm not saying that. No. Okay. What I'm saying, though, is what if, because I've seen this. I played with a church team in softball up in Nebraska, because my brother and everything, and I got invited. And I chose to not pray with them. Respectfully, I just simply don't pray. I find no value in it. And I chose not to pray with them. And I went from, a player on this team, and I was still on the team, but I was relegated to like nothingness. Before that, I was like always first person out there and stuff like that. And that's dangerous. That's a dangerous thing that they can do. It's not that they're looking for you. Sure. It's simply when they see you.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why
there's identifying of the other. Yeah.
That's why there's a difference between a can and a should. And I think that's a distinction. Is we need to make sure that anytime we're having a conversation, and I'm actually seeing this play out in the live chat as a fun aside, but there's always a distinction between can I do something and should I do something, and they're two completely different conversations.
That's right.
And I think we've probably on some of this, I think there might be a little bit of equivocation between the two, and you have to clearly define what you're arguing for. If the argument is can the NFL do this? Yes. By every standard, they can. Yeah. There is no argument there.
That's what I'm kind of saying.
However, if the argument changes to should they, we are no longer talking about can. Can needs to go over there in the kitchen, and we need to talk about should, because the conversation is not about can.
Yeah, so it's more like dealing the difference between a hypothetical and a normative, right? Or a hypothetical imperative versus a categorical imperative, right?
Well, it's constitutional versus cultural.
What should be. Well, the normativity isn't always what we're talking about. And I do see a lot of equivocation and overlap, because just because something should be doesn't mean that it can be or is at the moment, right?
Steve, do you think that I made a case?
I think you need to get closer to your microphone. Is what I think.
Yeah, your headset is not working, dude.
You sound like you're in Australia or something.
For somebody who has a microphone at a fixed distance, you are having a lot of trouble, bro.
Well, it might not be as good.
Oh, Jim just died. He's dead, guys.
Can you guys hear me?
I'm gonna miss Jim. I kind of liked him actually.
No, I'm here.
Okay. Well, here's an idea. If I can posit this back this way, the NFL has, because I don't watch the NFL anymore. I really don't watch football anymore at all. I am completely against brain damage. Until they fix things with football, then I'll come back. And that was my favorite sport. Damn it! So I hope they fix it. The NFL is losing money. Viewership is dropping, especially among white males between 25 and 40 or 50 or something like that, where viewership is dropping precipitously. Now, the most valuable sports franchise in the entire world is right down the fucking street from me, right? When they win a football game, which is not very often recently, the ball that's less than a mile from my house lights up and I got a little football and it's blue and shit, right? And it's annoying, especially when they beat the Chiefs. Which did happen. But they're losing money as well. Now, they've already lost quite a few of those folks that are like Super NASCAR, right? That are like the white guys, along with the people that are already leaving. Now, but most of the black males in the United States of America, the team they like the most is the Cowboys. All right. Do you want to be able to tell a franchise that's losing money, and the NFL is losing money as well? So this, economically speaking, you're looking at disenfranchising an entire sect of your fan base by saying, especially Jerry Jones, who has come out against this, after he stood for it, come out against it, and now he's completely opened it up and said, no, we're not going to do this. You're not going to be allowed to do that. The president of the United States has said you're going to be suspended without pay, which is really weird because he can't say that.
Yeah, I know. We had that conversation.
He's not even in the same field as everybody else. He's in a different stadium altogether.
Sure, yeah. If he doesn't have whatever. But now there's this idea though that they could lose a lot more money because not only are you disenfranchising a portion of the United States of America who is sympathetic to what is obviously happening, but also is you're talking about Black Americans, and especially if you start finding these folks simply because they're bringing attention to or attempting to bring attention to something that is systemic, something that does exist.
Yeah, I think the owners are making a bad decision. I do want to go on record to say that I do support the owners can make the final decision, right? These are employees. However, I don't think it behooves them. I don't think it does them any bit of good. Like you said, it actually has a very negative ramifications for them if they don't allow the players to express themselves the way they want.
And that's
So
why
I
I
am,
wanted
I am
to
for them expressing themselves if that is what the ownership allows.
That's why I brought up what I did earlier about wanting to move the conversation away from can, because if we all start talking about can but with the rhetoric of should, we get nowhere. If we talk about should with the rhetoric of should, now we actually have the ability to have the conversation. We can make some headway, because if you notice, 15 minutes ago, the conversation was should from Nathaniel, and the conversation was can from Steve, and they were in disagreement, but they're also talking on two completely separate ballparks.
Right. Can they know if the owner says no? Should they? Yes.
Now the conversation has changed, and Steve seems like he's budged, but he's actually bringing his position he had in the beginning. We're just now talking. Well, he did.
Yeah, I never changed position, man. I'm old at my age.
Ever?
I've changed position majorly, like 4 times just in the last year.
I think Steve's position never changes, because after missionary, he starts hurting his back. But my point was the reason I wanted to kind of point out the what happened here is that it seemed like a different conversation happened, and it seemed like Steve changed his position, but he didn't. He had the same position. We just moved the conversation to where it needed to be instead of where it was.
Okay,
exactly true.
Why are they kneeling? And Nathaniel multiple times brought up systemic and maybe institutionalized once or twice. What can be done about this? What can be done about this besides the winning the hearts and minds, of course?
Well, first of all is allowing the people to have their platform, allowing people to have their voices heard is step number one, because first of all, there are entirely too many white people out there who don't know why Copernic was kneeling, that don't know why other black players had their fist raised. And they say it's because they disrespect the troops, or you can get 200 different narratives from white people about why they're doing it. But if they would take time to listen to what the systemic problems are from people who aren't white, who are actually undergoing this oppression, then maybe they would have a clue to it, and we could all find common ground and come to some sort of conclusion.
Yeah,
Sam, go ahead.
I think that Jim's correct right there. Who's having the conversation? Anybody? Who is actually, look in this room right now, who is actually talking about it?
Yeah, white Jim.
I do not know what you're talking about. I'm Indian. I worked 3 years in a convenience store.
I had nothing to do with that last comment.
But no, look across the nation, across the entire United States. Who's talking about it?
Yeah.
White dudes. This is the same thing as who's telling women.
We're 70% of the population.
Yeah, and
who are you not listening to?
You mind if I kind of elaborate on this just a little bit here? Yeah. All right, look. So slavery has no doubt left a big scar across this nation. All right, socially, economically, in every way possible. Okay. So now we arrive at the modern day, and we have a statistically higher percentage of African Americans being, I guess we could use the phrase targeted for crime. But the fact is that they've come from these epicenters that were not as well off as their white counterparts for many, many years. All right. So now we arrive at the modern day. Okay. And I do kind of feel like the nation needs to find a way to address this, unified, all of us together. But the problem is a lot of the, white people, right, like me, when you're growing up, you aren't aware of these issues. Okay. You're just not. All right.
Right.
And the problem is they want something to be done about it. And this is a scar that runs deep, man. Right. This goes back a ways to the foundations of this nation and everything. And I think there is a bit of white privilege there in that, we, as I guess white people have done very well for ourselves, but you have to remember a large percent of the population, they're ignorant.
Willfully.
They just not always willfully though. People go about their daily lives.
It's almost as if many of us have channels trying to circumvent that.
See, but the problem is that when provided with knowledge, when provided with evidence, any type of ignorance is willful when it comes to that point. When you're being presented with with objective evidence, then your ignorance immediately becomes willful. And in today's age of technology and accessibility to everything, to everybody's platform and everybody's viewpoint, it's, I mean, ignorance is willful.
Let me put it to you this way, and this is something I've thought about for a long time. It seems to me that actually, African American history is incidentally American history. All right.
Absolutely.
But the problem is in school, outside of, little excerpts about Harriet Tubman and, maybe Grover Washington Cleveland or, some of these other people, you don't really learn about, any of the major contributors. Like I didn't know until I was 25 years old who Crispus Attucks was, Medgar Evers. I didn't know who any of these people were. And my point is that this needs to be more integrated into the fabric of America because that's where it comes from. And once you start doing this, all right, instead of trying to bludgeon people who are just going about their daily lives, some of them without a racial bone in their body, I feel like that's a better slow ebbing change that might actually help this country out.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, but the whitewashing of American history is nothing new. It goes back generations. I mean, white people are always made out to be the hero. Christopher Columbus is God. There's a long history of it.
Take it from somebody, and I know that as I'm saying this, Ralph is going to be nodding his head perpetually. But take it as somebody who grew up in a Christian private school, taught young earth creationism from the Abeka organization. Sometimes that whitewashing is incredibly sinister.
Oh, God, awful.
Yeah, I figured that I would get that from somebody who dealt with the organization the same way I did. There's you can always tell when somebody's dealt with Abeka, because the minute you bring it up, the cringe comes out.
I'm so glad I never have. I mean, I've looked into it, and I mean, it is cringe, but I'm so grateful that I didn't waste my mind learning that stuff.
Dude,
I've had to learn later only to argue against it, but never as something that was factual. I came in accepting when I was a theist that Adam and Eve exist. Well, at least the Garden of Eden. But even then, I didn't really ever think the Earth was young. I just didn't know how it factored in.
Yeah, well, this is as evidence. Half the time when me and Prophet of Zod are having conversations, Abeka comes up, and we've been having conversations for a while now. There's a lot in that conversation.
Did you still have the books?
I do not have the books anymore because they did not give you the books. The books were there at your desk, but you did not take them home unless you had homework. And you did not
have some access to them though. Like if I wanted to,
you could probably order them off their website.
I remember they used to have the little comic in them with that suspiciously spectacled deacon-looking guy who was always talking to the kid about some sort of, some sort of verses.
I think so. Yeah. But now we're going into like the first bit of education I ever had, and a lot of that got glanced over by video games. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you.
Yeah. This is one case where public education actually did somebody some good, because once I transitioned away from the church into public education, I started learning, actual topics.
I gotta ask you, Ralph, were you surprised though? I mean, as somebody who believed that at one time, the young Christians narrative, were you surprised to find out how much actual science is out there and how stagnated the younger creationist narrative actually is?
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I would be like, wow, I'm in awe. It's actually kind of cool, actually, right? How rare to you it is where you go, holy shit, look how much out there that I don't.
Imagine if we were able to get G-Man to have half a brain.
Oh, is he still around?
Oh yeah,
well, he has two brain cells. One's lost, and the other's out looking for it.
He's only as ubiquitous as he is because of Steve and Chris. He would die a slow, painful, deserving death.
Hey, I'll do.
You guys give him too much of a platform.
This year. I have not talked to him at all this year. I have my videos out against him. What else do I need to do?
I have only ever done one video on him, and it was on the opening video for his channel because I refused to dig deeper.
Yeah, there's nothing else I have to disprove about G-Man.
It doesn't go deeper.
Okay.
The best thing you can do is ignore him.
To get back a little bit on point, this is not freedom of speech, but it's freedom of expression. It's still culturally, not First Amendment, but it's culturally freedom of expression or speech. But okay, London, burqa ban of France, Sweden, Denmark, banning the burqas. And I'll also add in there, I know it's a proprietary thing, Subway sandwiches, not refusing to, they went to halal, I think it's called. And if you want to be BLT in London, you're hard pressed to find it at a Subway. They cater to the growing Muslim populations, but I want to speak specifically about the burqa ban and how would that translate to United States. And one more thing, federal banks. Now there's something to be said for being able to show your face, i.e. banks. When I enter my Navy Federal Credit Union, I have to take off my ball cap and my sunglasses. And so what the ramifications there? So the burqa ban.
Go on, sorry.
I think that the burqa ban, banning the burqa, it's a lot different than freedom of speech. Freedom of speech isn't directly affecting anybody, whereas the burqa ban, if there's one woman that believes that having to wear a burqa is oppressive, then that negates a need for burqas altogether, because it's not freedom of speech. It's not words being thrown around that you can ignore if you want to.
Remember, though, he framed it originally as this is not freedom of speech, this is freedom of expression.
Right. But
if
still,
a woman wants to wear a burqa, according to the burqa ban, would she be able to? Not that she's obligated to or forced to, but if she wants to.
In certain conditions, in certain conditions, sure. Whenever it's not infringing on anybody else's safety or privacy. But like Jim was saying, whenever you're walking into the bank and you have to remove your cover and your glasses, then yeah, if you should be able to properly identify yourself.
But these are for public spaces. I mean, like if you're outside, they ban the full body burqa and even the face burqa. I agree that in some public places, I don't think hiding your face is a good idea, right? Airports, banks, things of that nature, right? But if you're outside somewhere, my freedom of expression should be that if I want to wear something over my face, I should be goddamn entitled to do so.
If I want to go out there with a paper bag on my face, which I do, because
you should.
Steve, you're right. You're right.
That is something that affects society in a large way.
It really
I was going to say,
Oh,
I shouldn't have invited Jim because I'm usually about a 5 or a 6, but when Jim's in here, I just dropped to about a 3. Pretty early.
I'll remind me to tell Jim something off air. I won't tell you right now. I got to tell you something important.
All right.
Down less than a mile from me, because I not only do I live in Dallas, I basically live in downtown Dallas. Is LeakyCon this weekend? I don't know if any of you know what that is.
Yep. Yeah. LeakyCon?
Leaky LEAKY con this weekend in Dallas at the convention center. LeakyCon, by the way,
the one who found the Australopithecus down in Tanzania.
By the way, that was in Ethiopia. Not Ethiopia. It wasn't in Tanzania.
Tanzania.
God, I have a degree in this.
The Great Rift Valley.
And it was, and they are all dressed up right now like Harry Potter characters.
Yes, cosplay. It's just cosplay.
Yeah. So they can walk around right now wherever they want to go, and they're dressed up like in cosplay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And I imagine they're probably uncomfortable today because for the first time in the summer it rained today.
I thought you were going to say uncomfortable because the first time this year they're out of their houses.
That's true too.
That's different.
Not just houses. No, they're all great people. My girlfriend is so much into.
Me and Pam started dating at DragonCon. Believe me, I get it.
Okay. We're going to Universal Studios in Los Angeles this Christmas for her. I'm going to go there. We're going there more than anything for her to go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and also because they're tearing down Jurassic Park because dumb.
I'm jealous.
But so the same thing really applies to in the United States to people that want to wear burqas and stuff like that. We can go and if we would like to have our driver license photo taken with a colander on our heads as long as we're Pastafarian. That's been in more than a few states, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, there are certain instances where there is security. There are security things that need to be implemented. And nobody, I don't think, would ever argue against that. But saying you can't wear a burqa when you're outside, Okay, how is that different from, let's go to the Middle East where they say you must wear a burqa no matter what?
Yeah. No, I agree, but I mean, could it be that they had the burqa ban, so the women who felt like they didn't want to wear a burqa, but because of cultural and people around them saying that you must, then they could use the law and say, look, I can't wear a burqa because it's against law now. Do you think there's some reasoning for that? Because I think that had to come into play.
Well, I think if they're in Europe, much like here in the United States, sure, there's a certain amount of cultural and familial norm that exists with that, to where you want to show the respect to your elders and stuff like that, and to your families. And if you see, like, you go to like far east, like Asia and stuff, you go to like Japan and stuff, and there's a different culture there, and they dress that way because of the respect that's in the culture. But in the United States, if a person wants to, if a young lady, and especially in this case, because it does have to do, why are you in your bedroom? I'm
visiting a friend, so I'm live in her bedroom.
Why are you in
her bedroom? Exactly. If I looked like that, I would never leave a bedroom.
See,
but to where they could actually in the United States say, well, no, I'm not going to, because I'm not required to, because of where I live, and I have this freedom to not do that, and you can't murder me because of it. And I think that it takes a certain type of person to do that, but to ban the entire thing, to disrupt their entire religious ideology, especially because that's what it's like telling a nun you can't wear whatever the fuck they wear.
The habit.
Thank you.
Okay,
he only knows because it's his fetish.
Here I go. I hesitate to even bring this up, but it dovetails too perfectly. Majid Nawaz, you guys familiar with him?
Yes.
All right.
Sam Harris.
He's a moderate Muslim. He's pushing for a reformation of Islam because he agrees, just like his counterpart Sam Harris.
Yep.
They agree that it's a toxic ideology. Of course, I think we all do. Now he's specifically targeting at NSA checkpoints for people in burqas, or people that, because a disproportionate amount of Muslims support or enact terrorist ideology. Now, this is a type of profiling, and they are in support of it. And this is why I hesitate to say it, and I'm going to translate it to, I'm going to get my ass kicked for this. 6% of the American population that commits 35% of the crimes. And I'm not going any further than that, or I'll get my ass kicked. 6% of the population commits 35% of the crime, which translates to the reason why there's a disproportionate number of a certain type of the population in prisons right now. And I'm not saying it's because of skin color. I'm saying it's because of economic opportunities.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's going to start a powder keg, but there we are.
Not really. I don't see how that can.
No, I don't really have an argument with that.
I don't see any issue with you. All you did was give data. All you did was give data. How is anybody in this room going to say, no, your data? Hold on, let me look it up. Okay, so your data's right.
It doesn't fit the narrative that's considered racist.
No, I fully expected at least 2 or 3 people in this room to leave because of that statement.
Well,
that's how careful I was to word it.
I think this goes back to what I was stating about the whole social condition, though, and like you said, the economic condition. You know, this is just a remnant of our past, and it needs to be dealt with. I don't know whether that's inner city reform or, you know, some sort of federal or state level something. Man, something needs to happen.
Well, it's happening at an institutional level, so it has to be fixed at an institutional level. It can't be fixed at a community based level. You know, one community fixing one ghetto is not going to fix every ghetto, because one ghetto is not responsible for that. I am dumbfounded. I fully expected you all to have a more emotional reaction to what I just said. This is actually a good thing. I don't know if that's typical of the left view. We only have 2. Oh, go ahead.
Are you talking about 13% of the population with 50% of the murders committed in the United States of America?
6% of no, because the murders are committed by black males, but under 25 years old.
Apologetic for that number. There is.
I'm trying to get the exact thing here.
13%.
I like to go directly to the heart.
Yeah, black females aren't committing the violent crimes, so that's why I dropped it to just the males, 6%. And of course, I'm talking totally before anyone lights me up or I get my channel banned. I'm talking. There's 2 levels to this. It's not skin color; it's economic conditions. And since we're only 5 generations away from slavery, they haven't had a chance to catch up, basically. You know what I'm saying?
They haven't been given not just a chance, but an opportunity to catch up. It didn't just go from slavery to present day. You know, it's been a sliding scale of oppression, and we're not at a level of non-oppression. It's just less oppression than it was 10 years ago.
Just like Steve was saying earlier, light-skinned guy on one side of the street, dark-skinned guy on the other side of the street.
Absolutely.
Dark road. Which one is the cop going to gravitate towards if he wants to, do a little fishing?
Yeah.
And again, this is the difference between equality and equity.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You have a difference here because yes,
equality of outcome versus equality of opportunity.
Do you know that the Civil Rights Act, right, and the Voting Rights Act, 1963, 1964, right, or 64, 65, right? We know those. Do you know those ought to be renewed? That Congress has to vote to renew those?
I did not know that.
I did not know that.
Yes, they do. The last time they did it, I think, was 2007 or something. It's usually every 25 years. Do you know that we still have to do that? That shows where our nation is. That if we did not vote to renew that, we would go back to putting everything in, trying to put everything in place like stupid Rick Perry and what's his face Abbott does, to put it in place to where it makes it more difficult for minorities to vote. We are still there. We're not removed from this. The only way we can get removed from any of that is by electing, first off, women. We would all be better off. But also women of color. Shut up. And putting somebody besides old white dudes in Congress.
Well, you just disparaged an entire.
Yeah.
See, this is where we're at.
Dude, I'm very much offended.
You see, you're not going to win hearts and minds when you. There's a way to bring. Okay, let's say us old white dudes are up at the top of the ladder, and everyone else is at the bottom of the ladder. You're not going to get to the top of that wall by grabbing that old white dude and dragging him down the ladder a few notches. You're going to get up that ladder by building a ladder and getting up there with them.
Yeah, we're doing that. We're doing that. That's why we're voting.
No, but you're disparaging.
It's just saying that we need to go away from old white dudes. I would like to propose that we need to get away from not representing our population. I believe that our government should reflect our population, represent the diversity within our population, and that goes across the board of diversity, including LGBTQ, skin color, man and woman. I believe that we're not equally represented. The only people who are represented are the people with the most privilege.
The most, white Americans who make over $1 million per year. That's representation, but it's the opposite of representation. What we're talking about is this systemic racism, and it is. When you asked Jim earlier, you asked how do we fix it? I don't know if you meant how do we fix what's going on with, like, how do we come to a middle ground with the NFL and the players, or how do we fix what's happening every single day? Because it does. We have privatized jails. We have paid police officers to go to minority neighborhoods more. And they do that. They look at the studies that have been done of how much more they go to those neighborhoods. The systemic racism that exists, not just toward minorities in general, but also especially toward black males, it cannot any longer be ignored. And thankfully, there are people who are in high value view, able to view locations and in their employ that are able to bring this to the forefront, that are able to say these things, because we're not removed. We're still there. We're just pretending like we've moved on from 1865 and the 1960s. How do we bring them off the ladder? we get the millions of us that exist, and we first off we march.
There's a lot that I agree with you there, but I mean, you just kind of stepped on your own toes there a little bit with the previous acknowledgement that, you know, these neighborhoods are a problem because of their past, okay, which is why you would patrol said neighborhoods more.
It's not their past.
Well, it's ours as Americans. We need to own that. Okay, I would agree with that. But what I'm saying is like Jim has brought up, when you have a pattern of behavior that necessitates policing, okay, it only makes sense that police then go towards that pattern of behavior. So saying that they patrol those neighborhoods, all right, I don't care what color. I don't care if it's a white ghetto slum, like some sort of crack rock house in Arkansas that needs to have police patrolling that neighborhood all the time, or whether it's a black neighborhood or Chinatown. I don't care. If the crime is there, that's where the cops have to go.
But they're they're directed to go there, and there are black males and to a lesser extent females who are arrested for nothing, who are convicted even though they are proven innocent later. And this does, and the rate of recidivism among Black Americans is there because they did this, because we put in place privatization. Right? I'm sorry. It's not we put them in these ghettos, and we did not allow them the opportunity to achieve the prosperity
away their agency, right?
Okay,
they're not at fault for anything they do. They can't be.
They absolutely are.
Agents.
Every single person that commits a crime is absolutely guilty of their own actions. However, what I'm saying is that police are paid more to go, and they're directed to go more into these minority neighborhoods. They are directed, yes, and they do, and we've seen study after study after study of this happen everywhere. Look at Milwaukee.
If you were a police chief, would you direct your officers to the highest crime areas?
It's not because the highest crime area. It's because
you're just saying because they're black.
Yes.
No.
Also are convicted.
Citation needed.
Take it one more level down. It's not because they're black. It's because it's a poverty area.
It's
a high crime area.
No, it's
high crime.
Remember,
poverty is linked to crime, not skin color.
They are also they're convicted at a much higher rate for the exact same
because they are poorer, Nathaniel.
Yeah. Oh, so they're convicted because they're poorer.
Yes,
they don't have money.
Poor gets convicted more. Yes, I will agree with that.
Black guys are convicted at such a higher percentage than white guys, and
because
also
they're poorer.
Could it be because they commit more crimes?
And they
can't be because they commit more crimes, right?
Even on first crime, it doesn't really matter. The exact same crime, conviction, that not only they convicted more often, but they also serve longer term. They also serve longer jail and prison sentences than white people do.
Okay, so the majority of what you just said, like some of it I actually agree with, like the disparity in sentencing. I agree that that's actually there. But I want you to take a step back real quick. Just hear me out here, all right? Cop's starting his shift. He goes out, all right, and he has not a racist bone in his body, his or her body, okay? Goes out and does their shift, and they are patrolling, like Jim has tried to point out, and I've tried to point out. When you go on patrol in Iraq, okay, you hit the problem spots, okay? You're not going to hang out at the fob, okay? I mean, maybe you get mortared there, but there's nothing going on there, okay?
Steve was a fob.
Yeah, so it's the same thing with crime, and I know this is really hard because you get very emotional and charged about it. But the reality is that because these are impoverished neighborhoods, okay, and because they're looking for opportunity, and sometimes they have to make their own opportunity. Sometimes I don't even blame them for this. Okay, it's like, dude, they're just trying to friggin' live, man.
Well, I mean,
but here's the thing. The cop goes out, all right, and you're saying these crimes don't happen, but statistically we know that they do.
Say that.
Well, because you're saying they're going back to the neighborhood and they're just arresting people wantonly. Is what you're saying,
because
right?
they're also stopping people for. You have Mjolnir on your shoulder.
Mjolnir?
No, this is the Doomhammer from Warcraft.
Yes,
my avatar on. My avatar on my channel actually uses a hammer. For
all right, bitch. I'm bringing out the worst.
I'm trying to understand though, please.
So there's the black males especially are stopped more in their vehicles and otherwise, and unconstitutionally.
I agree.
And they're also arrested at a higher rate. Even though they may not have committed any crime, they're arrested at a higher rate.
They're just being pulled into prisons for doing nothing wrong. No,
but I don't. I see what he's saying, and I agree with him in part. Like for instance, Philando Castile. Okay, guy did nothing wrong. Oh yeah, that was cold blood murder. Okay, I don't care.
No, it wasn't. It was a justified shoot.
Yeah. See, now we're going to get into that. But Oscar Grant. Do you know who Oscar Grant is?
Yes.
Okay, he was a gentleman who was laying on his stomach and was essentially executed by the officer who already had cold-blooded murder. Okay,
that was a murder. Philando Castile was a justified shoot, though.
I don't.
No,
we're gonna come to head about.
There's no possible way.
Yeah, I mean, he was even trying to tell the guy that
I read every word of the court testimony. I heard every minute of the.
I'm sure you did, and I'm sure you're much more qualified to make a decision than they were.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So, anyways, what I'm saying is there's two problems here. Okay, and the first one, all right, and this is something I've thought about for a long time. There needs to be an extremely stringent standard. Okay, something needs to happen to Terry. Okay, I don't know if you know what the Terry standard is. That needs to be changed. Okay, because I'm telling you right now, that's what cops they're pivoting off of to be able to enable them to make these stops and get away with it. Yes. You know, with qualified immunity. Okay, so this needs to change. That first and foremost, that needs to change because internally, as a human being, I get sick as shit watching these people just trying to go along, you know, through the day with their lives, with their families, doing whatever they're trying to do, and getting summarily executed for it. I agree with you. There's a problem there. But when you're talking about cops doing their duty, all right, and I'm not like the biggest blue line advocate, okay, even though my sister's a cop. When you're talking about them doing their duty, you're saying that they're getting paid more to go into these neighborhoods and et cetera.
I misspoke there. I didn't mean paid more.
Okay, please.
There are certain places where they do receive bonuses depending on how many arrests they make, and they do go to those minority neighborhoods and make those arrests.
Okay, but what is the prior crime rate of said neighborhoods?
Well, the question that I would have for that, if I may, do you know where most of the drugs in the United States are consumed?
Oh, I would say in white neighborhoods.
Is consumed the right word for drugs? I don't do
yes,
drugs.
Consumed. Yes,
I would say used maybe because
injected the marijuana is the correct term.
Hey, Nathaniel, you're not far from Midlothian where I live. We just had a major meth lab just blow up down here.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was huge fire. It stopped traffic.
But how come we aren't going into white neighborhoods and arresting white people that we know have the drugs? They're that actually have the drugs.
Because white people can afford lawyers, and thus they don't perpetuate the prison slave system that's going on.
It's not just that, and I don't even have enough digits to count the amount of times I've watched or seen or maybe even once or twice partaken in drugs being consumed in middle class.
Jim had a good point there. No, Jim has a good point there. If we're talking poverty here, you don't have the means, the wherewithal to afford a good defense lawyer.
I think that is a very good point. I think that is a very
so that is a factor.
But the thing about drug use, okay, is you're having the movement of the drugs, which, by the way, the whole drug thing, like, it's just horse shit. All right, that's just my position.
Most people are in prison not for drug use, but for drug sales.
They're selling
Let's get that
it,
right.
Manufacturing it. Okay, and let me tell you something. There's no shortage of white crackheads pumping out meth in their little meth labs. All right, and they get raided, and those cops are just as worried about getting the HIV stuck into their veins as they are anywhere else. All right, so my point is the type of crime, whether it has an element of subterfuge or not, is obviously going to play into the visibility of the crime, and thus the arrest for said crime. Okay. So if you're walking around a neighborhood carrying a satchel or leaned up against a wall, and the cop sees you hand off a small packet of something to somebody, boom, Terry is met. Now they can put you up against the wall.
Yeah.
Okay,
right?
let me just put out like this totally spitball scenario. Okay, say you're walking in broad daylight and you see this white dude raping a drunken, passed out girl behind a dumpster.
Blows brains.
So you're saying if Brock Turner is involved?
Yeah, Brock Turner.
I mean, I wasn't going to name any names, but
no, he deserves to have his name drugged through the mud.
Well, that's the commission of a felony. If you witness that, deadly force is authorized even as a civilian.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but if you look at his conviction versus thousands of other people who aren't as privileged as he is, who are impoverished or who might possibly have different melanin content than he does. Look at the conviction right there.
Yeah, Brock got off with just probation.
Well, I've already stated anyways that I completely agree with you that there is a disparity in sentencing.
So
absolutely.
There is literally probably some Einstein sitting in some hood right now who's going to be arrested for some paltry crime, get double or triple the normative sentencing.
I just thought of the lacrosse team that got
North Carolina. Fuck them. Or Duke.
Yeah.
Duke now let me ask you this: should the sentencings for a false accusation be equal to the rape itself?
No, I don't know. Is the
Definitely
person
should.
that committed the crime
Ruining
black
people's
or white?
lives on false accusations.
It should be serious.
It should be a major crime. Yes,
It should be serious.
It should be very serious.
It should be serious. I don't think that lying and raping should be equivocated.
Dude, listen, man. I was a poon hound when I was a kid.
No, but we're looking at
some of those girls will play that game.
We're looking at the possible penalties. We're looking at both of them equally. So shouldn't the false accusation? Now it's just lying in and of itself. Yes, I give you that.
Yeah,
but
right.
But what's at stake? What's at stake?
Right.
So should she do 25 years to life for lying?
Yeah, I'm not saying that committing perjury should not be unpunished, but I'm saying that perjury is perjury. You can ruin a person's life by saying that they committed a crime, that they dealt you drugs when they didn't deal you drugs. It doesn't mean that you should receive the same sentence as you would for dealing drugs.
Is unique.
Donald.
Rape is unique in our society in that it's taken to a way farther extreme as to the shoulds and should nots. Very much so.
Rape is just as damaging as murder.
You could argue. No, it's more. It's worse than murder in people's mind. Yeah, because you can justify, like I killed so and so, but they were doing this in this extenuating circumstance.
Yeah, you can't justify
a rape.
Somebody.
You can't justify a rape. That person's life is over.
Jim, I have a question. I need to gain additional clarity on this the false claim. Was the person who made the claim black or white?
Which claim? What are we talking about?
The false rape.
Falsely accused of rape.
I mean,
should it matter?
No, my channel.
But does it?
I feel that I'm unique in the fact that I can set myself out of the bubble and look completely unbiased at any situation. I'm probably wrong about that, but I really feel like I can do that.
The fact that you said that proves you're wrong about that.
I don't think it should matter. I don't think it should matter.
No, I know that. No, you're correct. It shouldn't. But is the person a white male or black male, or is it a white female or a black female?
I'm not sitting on the jury, but if I were, of course, it's a Marine thing. I would definitely be the foreman of that jury because I would take the leadership role and I would let them know, don't let this sway your decision. His skin color should not matter.
It's almost like you should be able to wear a blindfold while sitting in the jury or something. You know?
They should.
I mean, it doesn't. I agree. I think everybody here pretty much agrees that there is a disparity. Like I was saying before, there is a problem. This country is like, I said ignorant before. You said willfully ignorant. But the reality is that a lot of people are genuinely just passively ignorant. Okay.
Passively ignorant is a really good way to put it.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
because they don't really care whether they're ignorant or not. What they care about is what's true to them, and if if the fact of it being true or not true does not affect them directly, then they don't care what truth is.
But what is truth? The metaphysical
here we
substance.
go.
Exactly.
Here we go.
Truth is objective. Okay, Socrates, calm down.
No, I was doing that to poke fun at people who say that.
You're funny.
How do we? So we know that when even though there is a certain amount of, we would say,
Jordan Peterson makes me want to
we need Ocean to get in here.
So
We do not need Ocean. That's the last thing we need right now.
Ocean is currently in Africa, so we don't have access to Ocean.
Good.
To answer Bo and stuff. Yeah, hey, we're still talking about free speech and whatnot.
I don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Yes, and I was about
Alex
to segue.
Can go fuck himself, but there's also, we, even without saying we agree on every single detail, we agree that there's racial disparity and that there is targeted racism, and it's systemic. The answer to the question is not is not, well, why does this happen in these neighborhoods? It's how to repair this, and I think that's a question that we try and find answer for. All the time. But I also think that we also don't ask the people who are involved in this very often. We're not able often enough.
I need to segue. I have 2 more points, and we have 29 minutes left. So here we go. This falls right in line with our topic. Now we're going to go to obscenity and free speech. Lenny Bruce, George Carlin. We're going to talk about getting jailed for just saying words. Okay. Okay, good. I'm gonna start off the topic. I'm gonna lean into the camera and show you the shirt I'm wearing right now.
I was wondering what that was.
Can everyone see the shirt I'm wearing? All right, so now would it be okay for me to wear this shirt I go to the mall right now? I go to the local mall, and is it legal? Let's talk about the could-haves, just like Suris was saying. Let's talk about the could-haves and the cans and the shoulds.
Hey, okay, so I have something to say about this, like as far as like curse words or profanity or swearing or whatever. So I could say this in a like kind of a wishy-washy kind of a way in my own words, but I would like to actually quote somebody who said it very succinctly and made a really good point when they talked about this. And I'll leave it up to whoever wants to chime in and guess who said it. It'd be yeah. I think you know the quote that I'm about to say. He says if you ever disregard everything of substance a person says simply because they uttered a phoneme that you have been conditioned to think they shouldn't, then you're engaged in magical thinking and you should go fuck yourself.
Yes.
And that's the way I think about it too. I mean,
I do not agree with him on everything, but he is absolutely right.
As
far as I'm concerned.
Should Zach Moore have cut off my live feed just because in context, in and of itself, I said the N-word on camera?
That should not happen as long as there is a justifiable context. You should be able to go back, point at that video, and say, "Look, guys, I wanted to get across the strength and the disparaging, disgusting nature of this word. That's what I was trying to do, and make them understand that."
And you can even point out in that situation that the fact that this happened only proved your point.
But let me ask you,
prove your point.
Going back to the algorithm, YouTube doesn't know how you're using that word. Right? Nope. If you use that word and the algorithm pops it and you get a strike,
Steve, it doesn't know. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you know this, but the algorithm only works for the first 17 minutes of your video. Anything after 17 minutes, it doesn't even check.
It doesn't check the entire transcript?
Nope. It only checks up to, now I've heard 18 minutes, but just to be on the safe side, you could say the first 18 minutes of your video, it only checks the first 18 minutes. So if you get demonetized, just try to refrain from cursing, whatever that fucking means. Just try to refrain from that for the first 18 minutes.
Yeah, the reason for that is because it's the analytics, it's data heavy.
There's a lot of crunch time that it takes to go through all that. Yeah, no question about it. But here's the thing about like public vulgarities, which your shirt would be considered to be a public vulgarity. We as a society do have social contracts with each other, right? We have something called etiquette. And one of the things that public has deemed irresponsible is to have certain types of public things that could be offensive to a majority of people. doesn't like the children, especially. Right? I mean, a public mall with its children present, are you able to do certain things? Right? Well, the answer is simply no. You're not. There are lewd acts that are considered to be obviously something that's criminal. Do I think wearing a shirt like that is criminal? No. But do they have a right to ask you to leave? Yes. Right. And that's because we have a social contract with each other by saying you don't have the right as an individual to supersede that of the marketplace. And of course, a public mall is a marketplace. And if you're out there wearing a shirt like that can be considered to be lewd or vulgarious, then yes, they can ask you to leave.
There are legal ramifications for obscenity. There's legal.
In some cases.
How do we define obscenity?
I
Exactly.
vehemently
vague term.
disagree with almost all of that. I have a major problem with this. Like, I understand the social contract. I mean, that's when it comes down to humanities. I mean, that's just something that we have to have and to be able to function. But the problem is that then it seems like whatever a segment of society successfully injects into society as some new form of etiquette, you could make almost any term, or label or whatever offensive. If we went back to the 20s and the 30s, there are words that you've never heard that would have just been so offensive at the time, which literally mean nothing now.
But personally, this goes back to the whole can and should. This is the way it is. I'm not arguing the way it should.
We're in should build.
A whole different argument there, right? Yeah. I'm explaining the way it is.
Okay.
As a private entity, if a business said, "Hey, we agree that it should be otherwise," and I agree with Ralph. I'm a free speech advocate, right? So if you want to go out in public and want to wear a shirt that says "fuck you all," be my guest. You should be allowed to do that. Okay.
That sounds like something Steve would wear.
I would totally wear a shirt like that. I think about getting one.
He wears that shirt by having a
mall that allows for that more than some other mall, right? So a mall said, "Look, we do not want that kind of vulgarity here." They're allowed to do that. If another mall said, "Hey, you know what? Bring it on," and that way the society can say, "You know what? I can bring my children to this mall and know that I have certain kinds of protections exposing them from certain things, and I go to this other mall, well, I don't have to worry about it." The marketplace would dictate that.
That's fine.
That's what it should be. That's not what
I don't think we should imbue words with magical powers.
They're not imbuing magical powers, but look at, I mean, as a parent, I don't want my daughter, when she was younger, she knows more dirty words than I know now, but I didn't want her exposed to certain things, right? And why would I as a parent, right?
Like what? Can you give me an example?
Well, I mean, like when she's really young, curse words. Later on, that didn't really pan out. She, like I said, she gets exposed to these things.
Here's the thing. I think that this is just my take. Like, I'm not demeaning or degrading your parentage, okay, or how you raise your children. Please let that be known.
Sure.
But what I am saying is that when it came to my daughter, the first thing I told myself was I was not going to coddle her. And the reason for that is because as they start to grow, all right, they take more shock, more, to these terms. Whereas if you just explain them to them, you'd be surprised how understanding even a very young kid.
No, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think, but it has to be measured, and that's that is contingent upon how you want to parent for each individual parent, not just you or I, and how you think that your children are going to respond to certain things, right? But even still, do you want a child being exposed to things that are pornographic in a mall? Like if I want to wear a shirt that completely obviously is something that's pornographic.
What's pornographic? Are we in Germany or United States of America?
Yes, exactly.
Yep. I was going to ask.
Well, we do, but there are laws against pornography, and
go to Germany.
Yeah, exactly. We had that conversation.
Again, we need to. Are we talking about what is and what should? And on top of that, Nathaniel had something he wanted to say. So let's get Nathaniel to have his word in first.
Yes.
I feel like Kent Hovind. Yeah, that's right. I haven't had my time.
We have to say kind. Yeah. That's
kind
the reason why he won't come back on my show, because he didn't get equal time. So
yeah.
You were never promised equal time, Kent. Fuck off.
All right, so the kind of words we're talking about and the kind of context we're in.
The clade of words.
If you've ever gone to like my I do like, other videos and stuff. The word kind is the word that I hate the most. besides Donald Trump, but that's more.
Just say the clade of words; it'll trigger a lot of people.
If I go to Australia and I talk to Jim Jeffries, I can call somebody a fucking cunt, right? And it doesn't mean the same thing as it means in the United States.
Great
point.
If
I say the word cunt around my girlfriend, you don't understand how much I'm stabbed. Okay. So there's geographical differences there. I think that we would need, and social differences. We put a lot of weight on words, but also, what if I don't want my children? And I find some of this bullshit about abortion and pro-life, and these neo-Nazi pamphlets, I find them very offensive. At what point are we able to draw this line and say, my children don't need to see your nonsense?
What I think should be the case in almost all cases, personally, and I know that Steve and I will probably disagree here, I think that everybody has a right to be offended. You never have a right to not be offended. And on top of that, I understand the idea of a social contract, but I also understand that offense is almost never received. It is almost always taken. You have to actively choose. I know there's a knee-jerk reaction involved, but there is an active point where you have to say that thing offends me. Because
offense is always taken; it's never given.
Yeah.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I believe that there are certain things out there, and some people might call them dog whistles or what have you. But there are certain things.
Dog whistle and microaggression are the only two words that offend me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to remember that whenever you do have an issue,
offended. I mean, look, if somebody talks shit about the military, I'm going to take offense to that. That doesn't mean that I don't think they have a right to not to say it. Right? Yeah, I have a right to be offended by it if I think that they're being a fucking.
Which is why I said, which is why the beginning.
They don't have the balls to go say in context, though. But
I have a right to say that.
You say that, Steve, but then in the same breath, you also say, "Oh, but there are these certain words, though."
I think those are two different things, TJ.
Well, let's talk about being offended. Somebody talking shit about the military. Most of us are veterans here. Most of us would be offended if somebody talk shit, but you have to take it into context. Who's saying it? Is it your daughter's second grade teacher that's saying it, or is it somebody in Europe that's saying it?
Yeah. Whenever I tell Jim that his ass definitely rode Navy equipment, sir. There's a different bit of context.
Really is Navy equipment, sir. Yeah.
But there's a bit of a different concept there, and we have a bit of rapport built up because it's not my fault you're Department of the Navy. And
boys be boys.
But if I go down to Houston and I fucking plaster "fuck Trump" on the back of my truck, that's I think there's a little bit of a different. That is offense meant, by the way. I mean to offend you if you fucking follow me.
Okay, let me suggest something real quick. Any stifling of expression inherently creates weakness, all right? And it creates a society that doesn't necessarily have the best framework to deal with whatever is thrown their way. And that's just my position, okay? And that's the way that I've been called everything in the book. I've been in a lot of fights. I actually have scars all over my body. But the thing is when we're limiting this expression, I think not only is it unhealthy for society, I think it's unhealthy for the individual as well.
Is that also including speech that incites violence?
Okay, so there's a difference between a direct threat and a
no. I'm not talking about a direct threat. I'm talking about spreading rumors such as there's a child sex trafficking ring in the basement of a pizzeria, and not telling people to do anything, but a person out of their own mind thinking that I had to go and save these poor children who are being raped in the basement of this pizza place.
Honestly, it's a byproduct of free speech.
It is.
Yes,
I'd say it, but
have to accept with it.
Yeah, that is a total could and should.
Let me suggest this as well, though, too. He should be held accountable for making a claim of fact that was untrue.
No, I don't think so.
Wait, hang on, Ralph. Legally or socially?
No, not either. I think he's just a nutter that should just be dismissed.
If it's socially, if the ramifications that Alex Jones is to receive are solely on a social level, would that include him being deplatformed from private companies?
Let me ask you this,
why not?
Jim. Let me ask you this: if a flat earther had sparked someone's interest to go to Antarctica, and he thought he was well equipped, and he went to the South Pole, and he thought he was going to see the edge of the planet, and he froze to death. See, it's the same thing. It's a conspiracy that caused his death.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And this is completely subjective. But in the case of the pizzeria, it would have been innocent bystanders being injured. In the case of flat earthers, it would just be flat earthers being injured. So I'm kind of okay with that.
Okay, let me be very clear about something here.
He took some penguins out while he was dying.
Number one. Number one.
I'm okay with it as long as it isn't anybody I agree with.
The guy.
Yeah, I mean
Ralph,
he made a decision.
Ralph's trying to get a word in here. Ralph, go ahead.
Yeah.
Look, okay. All right.
The guy who went into the
hang on,
pizzeria made a decision. All right. And we all make decisions whether they're based on good evidence or bad evidence. And the intelligent or the wise among us are going to be the ones who do their due diligence beforehand. Okay.
Right.
Second,
which is why we should remove warning labels from everything.
I think that might actually.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to invoke social Darwinism, then you know.
I mean, that's kind of what we're arguing here, is it not?
Not
at all.
No, I mean, I think there's a big point to be made there that the individual went to do something that could have harmed other people, rather than a flat earther that goes to South, America,
absolutely,
and then dies of freezing cold exposure. I mean, there's a difference.
Yeah. Which is a good thing.
He's not hurting anybody but himself.
Yeah, I'm all for the Darwin Award.
Okay, but the person still was this person an officer? Did they reach out to the police, the FBI? I mean, that's FBI level shit right there.
Is it?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it is actually.
Wait, okay, all right. Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the flat earther going to Antarctica, or about the guy going to the pizzeria?
I'm talking about the pizza.
That would be federal.
I'm head spinning here, but yeah, the pizza. Okay, so I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely. No. I'm in complete agreement with you there.
Okay, so there's a lot of times that I've wanted to, particularly before I had a family, where I wanted to inject myself into a situation to try to resolve it, and then sometimes that situation turned out to be something that it wasn't to begin with.
Yeah.
Okay. And this unfortunate person went into that pizzeria, and basically his naivety or his gullibility is what.
Yeah, it's not even though Alex
did
something stupid and there's social ramifications for it. I don't think there should be any legal ones there because a dumb person did a dumb thing, but if this dumb person did the dumb thing, I know that's being very, very general. They were already going to do something dumb to begin with.
Yeah, they can't be held legally responsible. That's not going to happen.
What about World of Worlds?
The only reason that this person did this thing is because he was told something that was purported to be true.
The reason doesn't matter. This is why I brought up the Bible and Quran issue before.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
which is right.
Not telling them to go do it, then
the Bible and the Quran are purported to be true by the people who teach it.
And Alex Jones is purported to be factual by himself and his advocates. The situation is not similar, but almost the same. But I would never say that Alex Jones should be held responsible for something somebody else did. Just as I would not say
morally and ethically.
Would you say that Islam is not responsible for suicide bombers?
I would say
itself is not.
Islam itself, no. Individuals and ideologues are, but that's not the same thing as saying the Quran is responsible for it. This individual was responsible for his actions.
The Quran is just the doctrine of the ideology. The ideology is what's responsible.
No, because you can't hold.
Exactly. Ideology is not an entity you can hold responsible.
It's not an agent.
There's a difference here between the ideology and people promulgating the ideology.
I mean,
you want to hold the person promulgating it is responsible. That's a different thing.
Alex Jones was just talking out the side of his neck. He was not inciting anyone to actual violence.
He still says a lot of stupid shit.
But we all agree with that. The guys
he has incited violence against other groups of people.
Yes, but not on the Pizzagate thing.
But when it comes to the deplatforming, if Suris and I just agreed that is a morally and ethically that he is held responsible, then it is up to a business to decide, look, you violated our moral code, you violated our moral standards. They have moral clauses, right? You can terminate somebody for that because you're disseminating bad information.
It's the whole reason that
I got no issue with that. That's a social response.
I have to cut it short, guys.
Didn't TJ want to say something?
TJ,
Jim, you're out of here?
Yeah, I'm out of here, man. You guys take care.
Thank you for coming.
The best looking person.
He's in a female's bedroom.
I know.
I'm going to go back up to a 6 now. Hey, everyone, do you have any plugs?
Guys.
Jim, do you have any plugs?
Wait,
guys,
who's a good-looking guy?
Follow us on Atheist Republic if you're looking to meet up with like-minded people. We have consulates in your state, more than one in most cases. Hit me up on Facebook, Jim Majors, if you want to find a consulate of your own. Would love to have you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you got fans. People are messaging me who you are. They're like, "Who's that guy on the panel with you?" I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I, a matchmaker? By the way, it's only guys messaging.
Is your girlfriend going to get mad if you accidentally make
I had to ask, man. That's my only plug. Just that's.
All right, I go back up to a 6 now.
I'm good.
Later.
I think, like saying that, I think that because you can't hold like Alex Jones responsible for most of the shit people do, because if you follow Alex Jones and you accept the things that he says, this is no different than like Taxi Driver, right? Like I'm just saying that you can't hold who the fuck directed it? Not Oliver Stone. I feel bad for saying that. You can't hold him responsible for that nonsense.
Scorsese.
Yeah, or Coppola.
Yeah.
Coppola.
Francis, wasn't it France? Was this
Taxi Driver? Robert De Niro.
It was Coppola.
Yeah.
Oh, Coppola. All right.
I think I might not be.
I don't remember.
I'm not a cinephile.
You can't hold him responsible
Martin
for the shit that
Scorsese.
happened outside of that.
TJ was trying to say something.
TJ has a mic.
Sorry.
Everybody can hear.
TJ's been trying to say something for like 10 minutes. All right, go ahead, TJ.
No, I didn't even know where you...
It's okay, DJ. It's okay.
I got 2 more things to get out. We got like 20 minutes.
Like like H.G. Wells. Okay, so like H.G. Wells, right? So H.G. Wells had his War of the Worlds novel or story or whatever broadcast. It was never divulged.
Orson Welles, not H.G. Wells.
Was it Orson Welles?
Yeah.
No,
okay, it was.
Yeah, it was. Well,
It was
Orson Welles.
Yeah, it was 1929.
Okay, yeah, okay. So that makes more sense.
beautiful voice.
But beautifully, monologue radio bit that was done. It was not immediately said, "Hey, this is a work of fiction." It was basically broadcast as almost like a news report.
No, that's not true. They every 20 minutes or so they said
after every commercial break.
Yeah,
that's right.
They said all the time. Every time.
Did they say that at the beginning of the broadcast?
They said it at the beginning and at the beginning and end of every commercial break. I've got it on Vital, all four discs.
Yeah, and somebody know it's Orson Welles.
Well, no, I mean, that's why I was like bringing it up, because I was wondering, like,
but it was produced as a radio show by Orson Welles.
But still, people freaked out.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they wanted to hold him liable for it.
Like, and he
but
wasn't.
There's no liability there because he's not advocating the fake news to be news.
He gives a disclaimer before.
Yeah, because the disclaimer does that.
During,
was Alex
multiple
Jones.
Times.
He has said he is a character.
He does not do that on the show.
He doesn't do it
Alex
before.
Jones
He doesn't do it on the show.
He only did it
doesn't
once
do it
in open testimony on in court.
Yeah,
He
the
only
only
did it
reason
once.
why he said that
"I'm
because
Shulman. What I say is complete bullshit." He said it once in court. That's it.
Because he was under oath.
Yeah, but still, his lawyers are still going after the people at Sandy Hook, saying, "Show us birth certificates and death certificates."
Yeah,
that's part of the show. That's still part of the show.
Yeah, that's real life, man.
Yeah.
Is a birth certificate or a death certificate public knowledge? Are those things supposed to be public information?
I mean, even with that being stated, the kind of like I said, like I'm all for challenging the social contract and norm and everything, but I mean, any of us who are parents, I think we can agree that that's about the worst thing that could ever happen to us.
Fuck yes.
And what they are doing is they're literally like pouring salt in that wound, lighting those parents on fire, and stabbing them with sharp sticks. I mean, it's about the worst thing that you could do to another human being. So I think,
and I think people should be able to sue for emotional distress.
Yeah, I think in this particular case, they should leave them the fuck alone. And he's going way above and beyond what a decent human being of any sort of theatrical type.
And not only is that true, Ralph, what gets me is the hypocrisy that he had during his divorce. He asked the public to not, get involved in his private things have considerations for him. And I was like, are you fucking out of your mind?
Yeah.
You don't see the hypocrisy there.
His divorce as a public platform to get guns snatched. I mean,
it's the same reason that we will still shoot Greg Lockdown because he's a scumbag individual.
Well, yeah, we were gonna have him on, but now we found out more stuff about him that it's just we don't feel like it's
until that came to light. I was actually considering having him on, but no.
Yeah, I don't think giving him a platform is a wise decision at this point. We decided against it, and I think that's the correct decision to make.
Okay, last topic. You guys ready? Sure. It has nothing.
Is this what it involves? Is it going to be boobs? When are we going to get to the boobs? I was told boobs would be here.
Do you go by Ralph or Jason?
Ralph was told there was boobs too.
Okay, I go by both, and this is going to be kind of confusing.
Because I call you Jason, but it's showing up Ralph on your thing.
Yes, because I use my Gmail usually in the past for professional correspondence. So my first name is Ralph.
All right.
But my dad's name is Ralph, so naturally growing up, to avoid confusion, I was Jason.
Okay.
And
I've been calling you Jason this whole time.
Dude, Jason is perfectly fine. Okay. That's what all my... unless you are some sort of contractor I'm dealing with overseas, I'm Jason.
You know what? I'll just throw out both topics, and I'll let you just talk about both of either one of them, because I had two, and I have to get... I'm an Uber driver, and I have a backlog of people I need to pick up and drop off here in about 30 minutes.
You come to Dallas?
Yes, sir. I can give you you got my number. Dude, I will take 20% off of any Lyft or Uber fare too. You get to give me 24 hours notice though.
Oh, never mind.
Okay, here's the deal.
I like to get drunk on a whim.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do. They call me up at 3:30 in the morning. Hey man, we're at fucking this titty bar. Okay, I'll do it. $30 is $30, right? All right. So, here's the two topics. You guys can dissect them as you want. I was going to talk about blue wave in 2.5 months. Is there going to be a blue wave? Second is YouTube atheists. This just happened during the course of this conversation, but I was always thinking Dark Matter 2525 would be the one YouTube atheist. Who would you not want to get in a scrap with? And now I'm looking at Jason. I'm like, man, he's physically fucking intimidating. What YouTube atheist would you not want to get in a scrap with?
Like physically?
So now I'm talking blue wave in November, and physically, who would you not? What YouTube atheist would you not want to scrap with?
Suris, because I don't want him touching me.
That's so dumb. Come on, man.
That's true. I was gonna say Steve, but Steve would be like, "I'm not a YouTube atheist."
Well, Dark Matter. Do you guys follow him? He's got the cauliflower ears.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Multiple broken noses. Like. This guy, he rolls.
Yeah,
he's been around.
When you see somebody who's got cauliflower ears, I had a buddy in my unit, cauliflower ear. That's when you know that if it goes to the ground, you are fucked.
You're not escaping that joke.
He's
anyway, what do you guys think about? Yep. What do you guys think about the blue wave? Is it going to happen? Are we going to take the House and the Senate?
Yeah.
I think with Trump's particular approval rating, there's a high chance of that, but it's all going to be proportionate to how many people actually get up off their asses and vote.
Yeah.
We do know that the more people vote, the higher of a chance it's going to go dim.
Yes.
Nathaniel, you're trying to get in here?
Yeah. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
I am going to read something that I wrote the other day, and I can't find it because all my photos are of my corgis, and I'm not upset about that.
No, that's all right.
Yes.
No, I'll give you time. I can fill in the dead space.
I have most of it up here. If I skew one or two numbers, I'm sorry. I'm not a robot. Also, lots of rum. Yes, at least the House is going to, I would say 98% going to go blue by more seats than they currently think it's going to. The Senate's a little more difficult, but yes, this is what we're looking at in the state of Texas is a good example of this, as well as Kansas and Virginia and Georgia and Alabama, especially. You look what happened down there, and in Ohio this past week. You look at the state of Texas, the Democrats turned out in the primary more than Republicans did. And not only that, in the top 10 populated counties in the state of Texas, especially there where you have, it's kind of like mixed, like purple and blue in some places, you had more Democrats turn out. You look at Georgia and extremely red places in Georgia where the races should not have been close, were very, very close. In some different places, Democrats won. But even this past week in Ohio, the 12th district in Ohio, which Donald Trump won by, 7, 8, 9, 10 points. And the incumbent previously had won by 40 and some odd points. You're talking a 0.9% by the Democrat losing by that. So and historically, in the midterms, after there is a party change in president, there is a shift in the House and the Senate. This year, especially with more women running, this is the first time since like 1992 that this has happened, with so many women, especially minorities running, you're going to see an incredible shift. And not only that, but even more and more left into your democratic socialists, which is a bit of a new thing for Democrats. So yes, I would say that it's going to, the House, definitely. The Senate, I'm going to put it at 70% likely for Democrats.
I don't think that's a bad analysis.
Thanks. That's the one thing I do well.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of backlash, and I think that a lot of people, like you said, especially the House is a given. But the Senate, but think about if they do. What happens if there is a blue wave, and let's say that you do have complete control by the Democrats for the House and the Senate? How is that going to affect Trump?
Cuts his nuts off. He gets
pretty
impeached.
much. It does cast. It does.
It'll remove Kavanaugh.
Well, yeah, but they're trying to push Kavanaugh through before then because
it ain't gonna happen.
What's his face? Turtleneck is
it ain't gonna happen.
I don't know why y'all didn't go Sanders.
I like Bernie.
I was Bernie. I voted for Bernie in the primary.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, I didn't. But if I had known that where we would be, I absolutely would have. I'll tell you, I didn't vote for the pumpkin either. But I don't know, this upcoming election, man. Internally, the only thing that really keeps me from voting left usually is I'm a staunch advocate of the Second Amendment. So that usually.
I'm going to ask you, Texas guys, the Jason, TJ, and Nathaniel. You think Beto O'Rourke is going to beat Ted Cruz?
Go ahead, TJ.
I think he's gotten a lot of money. He's
so close. A lot of money. So close.
But other than that, just one thing I wanted to say about the question you asked earlier, just as a side note, I wouldn't want to fight Steve McRae because I heard he fights naked. So
you heard right.
That's
what?
Okay.
I've never lost a fight.
I'm a competitive fighter. I fought for 7 years in cage fighting, and one of my go-to things that people warned other fighters about me is when they tried to suffocate me with their hands, I would lick their palm. And there's something very homophobic about that.
No, seriously, there is.
No, and if we're closed in a standing or a ground grapple, I will whisper all kinds of dirty shit in their ear just to get them off their game.
Okay,
I tell you what I do is I do the Jason Spencer thing. Literally, I just pull down my pants and I just run butt naked into somebody, and I guarantee I have not lost a fight again.
You run into
I'm not in politics, right? So I don't have any office, so I can't step down. But I think Jason Spencer had it right. I think that was it.
So, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. So when you say you run into them, so you're fully erect.
Yeah, full run backwards, right? Ass in the face. I guarantee you, all you motherfuckers will get the fuck out.
You just palm them in the back real quick so they bend over.
Fight Steve. I'd be like, no, just don't.
Somebody noted though. I was naked. I did take down my. Well, I was wearing a towel. My roommate came after me. Yeah, I took his ass down. Yeah, he tried to choke me, and I just basically took my hand like this to my hand, and I just took him down the armbar, went down like a sack of shit. But so that's close to the naked fighter.
Glorious man-made naked guy like taking you down. You know what I mean?
Oh.
All majestic and shit.
Well, see,
with his,
TJ Jason
with his
scares the shit
silver
out of me the way he
goatee.
looks. Obviously, he's a scrapper. He would annihilate me. But I also know Jim. I know he has a background in martial arts. So
Yeah,
either
but his
way,
back's fucked
I
up.
think it'd be. I don't know what the lesser of two evils would be. Either way, I'm not going to get out without major bodily damage. So
I am, believe it or not, I am a striker.
Ooh.
And I'm practically useless on the ground.
I'm more
I'll tell you that right now.
boxed a little bit in the Navy. I like to grapple. I find that to be more advantageous. For
Stand-up fighting is just foreplay to me. So if I can get you on the ground,
yeah, you might be able to wad me up. There's been guys I beat on the ground. How I normally do it is I either get him just in a rear naked and then I leg wrap him, and then I just hold him there. And I just hold them there as long as I possibly can. Until
if you got someone that knows how to survive off just little bits of air and not panic, yeah, and just sit there and just let you tire yourself out and then make a move.
Yeah, I fought a guy. We were in basic, man. I fought this one guy. His name was Jacob Frame. I'll never forget this guy. We beat the shit out of each other with pugil sticks. I mean, dude, I'm talking like prize fight of the night. Like we're swinging so hard, our whole body is turning every time we're hitting each other, kind of thing. And the drill sergeants are, yeah, I mean, it was good. But we used to have this argument about what was better, striking, which I have background in Taekwondo, which to my like as far as distance and spacing and striking, okay. But as you and I know, Jim, like fights don't end there usually.
No.
They usually end on the ground.
Nope.
And I figured that out when I started fighting people. So I fought this guy, and it just so happened that he had a background in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, Jesus.
So we were at the gym, and he put me in something he called the Saturday Night Ride. And I guess I talked to somebody, and this is apparently something that you have to be a real goob on the ground to end up in. So, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. Shit, guys.
Wait.
I don't know where I was going to go with that.
Oh, I think
can I give my Beto response?
Yes, Beto and Ted Cruz.
Yes. First off, I don't know who I would fight. I don't think I'd want to fight like Matt Dillahunty because he would just like logic me into an understanding that my fighting stance.
No, he would make you feel so bad that you're a middle-aged white male that you would just want to go kill yourself.
No,
yeah, exactly. He would just no, you're done, and he would fall over.
Nathaniel, shut up, Nathaniel.
He would put you on mute so you couldn't do anything.
You keep charging at him, and he'd
You're on hold now.
No, you're done.
No, you're done. That's exactly. Hey, no, you're done.
He'd physically hang up on me, and right there, I'm like, where did he go? But somebody, I think in Matt. By the way, Matt, if you watched it, don't hate me. Somebody, by the way, in the comments said that they think that the overconfidence of the Democrats is going to drive down vote. No, we already tried that in 2016. Ted Cruz is universally hated in Washington. Nobody likes that guy.
No one likes him.
No, not even orange fuckface. And so it makes sense that, Texas, people from Texas, nobody likes people from Texas. So they, they identify with Mr. Cruz. So that makes sense. But there is an invigorated base of people that not only are left-leaning or Democrats or anything along that side, but also moderate Republicans who look at Ted Cruz and first off don't see him as a strong as a strong Republican and don't see him as somebody who can identify with us here in Texas and are not going to vote for him, or people who are so disenfranchised with the bullshit happening at 1600 Pennsylvania that they're like, I'm not going to vote Republican no matter what this year, to go along with, as I mentioned earlier, this incredible amount of young people. Jim, I know you always roll your eyes when I say young people that are voting for the first. Yeah, people tell me whenever I say it how you just sit back and go.
Well, you always. Hey, case in point. Tomorrow morning, we have an atheist Metroplex atheist business meeting at 1300. Just so you know. So yes, last time we were at that it's a monthly business meeting that we do, our local atheist group, and yeah, you said young people are our future. They're the way forward, and
they're the most important.
I don't know. I kind of felt like we were being discounted, and we're the ones doing all the heavy lifting.
What I said was that those are the people that you're not connecting with.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
And then I said it's not how you're asking, it's who you're asking.
But they're not our future. We're the future because we're the ones making the change.
As a young person, I am offended. I'm kidding.
Go to your safe space.
I understand what you're saying, Nathaniel.
But this large influx of young people who are voting for the first time and are voting in numbers that certainly when I was 18 did not even get close to. We didn't even know about elections when I was 18. Apparently, George W. Bush was going to be president. We didn't know. That's how old I am. And I think right now it's 51-49 or something like that. And it's
close.
Yeah, that is so far from what it should be in the state of Texas. And I've been telling people for the last couple of years that Texas is more purple than people look at it as.
Dallas, Houston, Austin is purple, but the rest of the state is ruby red, baby.
And nobody fucking lives there. If you can get if you can get people in, especially the Latino community in Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, even put Beaumont in there, I don't care, to vote, which they are voting in record numbers. We've already seen that. Then, yeah, I think that Beto wins in November, and I think he wins by, if we get a higher number of voters, by 5, 6, 7 points.
That would, that would be awesome.
I agree.
That would be a huge fuck you right there. And no one likes him anyway. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Strikers, Jason, if you can't make it happen in the first 2 minutes, you're done.
Yeah.
Because we're going to put you like a turtle on your back. That's what I was going to I just remembered. Anyway, anyone has any last words before I go to plugs?
No, this was fun, man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
Likewise.
What was that question?
Well, Steve, you sound dead when you say that.
Do I?
Nathaniel had one more saved round, I think.
What was that question you asked people? I forgot what it was.
Oh, you want to field the question? Okay. I had to tailor it for you as a non-believer. If it was TJ, you want to say it?
Who is it that we want to ask? Because
we're going to ask Nathaniel.
4 of the people? So we've never.
Oh, I remember it now. If it were proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that Yahweh of the Old and New Testament existed, would you? How would it change your life, and what would you do differently? Would you bow down and worship him? Would you rebel against him? That kind of thing.
Well, I need to take a drink.
It's a hypothetical.
Total hypothetical. It's the funny thing about asking believers a hypothetical, they have a really tough time in my experience. They can't answer this question.
Tell me about it.
They cannot answer this.
Hypotheticals, and I get shat on them all the time.
Yes.
Why are you asking that question, Steve? That's a hypothetical. Well, no shit.
Yeah, but entertain me.
And you know what? It's because we're more comfortable with the hypothetical or abstract, in consideration with what we don't believe.
It's true.
Well,
we're okay with that.
It's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it.
Well, Nathaniel, I'll ask you, and then since Jason, I want to ask you also. So Nathaniel first, and then Jason, and then we're going to go to plugs.
Jason talks less than I do.
I don't know about that.
Good. That's better. So I would like to first. I asked last year a large number of religious folks if. It was like a 3-part question, and it was progressive 1, 2, 3. So if you said no to any of the questions, that was it. You didn't get to the next question. And it had to. The first question was, if your religion was wrong, would you want to know? There was that one, and then the second one was there was 3 of them. I forget what the second one was, but and the third one, of course, was would you stop worshiping at that point? And like if you found out your religion was wrong, would you stop worshiping the God? And I think that 1 or 2 out of like nearly 100 people got past question number 1. that they wouldn't even want to know if their religion was wrong. And that says something about a mentality, I think.
I had a woman on my show, the only one that said she wouldn't want to know, and she's also the same one that said she thinks her horses are going to heaven with her.
Oh yeah, Molly. I know.
Yep.
So the hypothetical is, and I think that probably Jason or Ralph or and I are probably going to have probably the same answer, I'd imagine. And I was actually going to do a video about this tonight until I remembered, because you sent a message that we had this, and I apologize for that. And then I went and I said it was after 6 o'clock, and because it's Central Time, and I had just gotten back from the grocery store, and I was making dinner, and my girlfriend she hurt her back, and so I'm the doting boyfriend right now. Just it's different for me, and I went in there. I said, hey baby, I know I'm planning on doing a different video tonight about how I would never be a Christian again, but I forgot to tell you I have this video at 9 o'clock. And then you guys started messaging, and I said, oh, it's 7 o'clock. And so it was like 6:50, and I'm cutting up cream cheese to put in an Instapot, basically. And I said, babe, I don't think I'm gonna make this. And I said, thank you so much for understanding. And so I have a lot more doting to do after this. Well,
thank you so much for that. You sacrificed.
You should thank her.
You leaned into the strike zone
for not murdering me. The short answer of that is no. I was a youth pastor for amount of time, and I left being a youth pastor not because I didn't believe anymore, but rather because I found it all to be very political before understanding what political really meant. It was all about having more people and more money, and it was rarely about having actual emotional connections and saving people. And I found that to be rather it turned me off to the idea of ministry, at least in this particular church. Looking back now, as I have been non-religious now for 7, 8, 9 years, I suppose, there is no way that I would ever go back to Christianity, even if this Yahweh character were real. If the Yahweh character, now there's a caveat. If the Yahweh character that exists is the exact same as is portrayed in the religious text, so the Talmud, the Septuagint, the Bible, the New Testament, all of that, and I'm guessing that's what your question entails, correct? That it is that Yahweh. Is that?
Maybe he's picking his nose.
Yeah, he's either picking his nose or he had to take a dump or something.
Assume arguendo, yes.
Yeah.
Let's assume that it's Yahweh of the Old and New Testament.
As described in the Bible.
Thank you. No, there is no way that I would ever go back to that. The absence of morality that is existent in Abrahamic religions altogether, but monotheism and especially into what I grew up in with Christianity, it's not just the absence of morality, it is the complete inundation of immorality and this subjugation of women and the murdering of children, and not only that, the coercion that has existed in this. It's not love, it's the opposite of love. Somebody that loves somebody doesn't say, well, you have to love me back, I'm gonna fucking murder you. No, this is the exact same
brother.
As whenever I give this idea, I say, if I'm getting cash out of an ATM and somebody walks up behind me and they put a gun to my head and they say, give me your money, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Okay, well, there's a few different choices I could go with here. One, I could give you the money because I think that I'm going to live. And number two, I'm not going to give you the money and you're probably going to shoot me. Or number three, what if I give you the money and you shoot me anyway? Okay.
So you don't even have to frame it as that much. You can even have it. All they have to do is just like they say, hey, kiss my boot and I won't shoot your face.
Yeah.
The threat is exactly the same. I actually have a video on my channel called "Is Hell a Threat?"
I love that
frame
video.
it exactly that way.
No, I have to watch
exactly that way.
That might be your best video ever.
But even if let's say that even if I say yes to that and he still murders me, that's the exact same thing as me dying, finding out this piece of shit is real, and then hanging out with them and saying, "Hey," and say that I'm a Christian. He could still send me to hell
for being the wrong type of Christian.
Yeah, there's the opportunity, or it's a thought crime. What if I'm only doing this to avoid hell, which is the only reason Christianity exists?
That's Pascal's wager.
Yeah, I was going to say this is just carefully framed Pascal's wager is really all it is.
But the reality is that if you had certain knowledge, if there's such thing was even possible to have a certain knowledge that some deity existed, whether it was Moloch or the God of the Bible being Yahweh, depicted as it's I'd say normally depicted, but the worst version, a very evil type of deity that's particularly depicted in the Old Testament. I think most people, though, still would be like, okay, I'm going to still worship that deity because of the consequences. It doesn't mean that you're going to enjoy it. I mean, people were slaves because the slave master had power, right? So if a deity like that exists, whether it be a demon or devil, God, or whatever, most people would probably go, well, fuck, yeah, I'm going to worship that. I don't have to like it because of the consequences.
And they might even capitulate to the slave owner and try to earn their favor so that they can have an easier life.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not an unreasonable thing. That's nothing irrational by doing that. I mean, if you this is hypothetical that you have knowledge of some type of deity like that.
Yeah, I would never worship that kind of a deity ever. I would never bow the knee to that. I would gladly spend eternity in the torture that he already knew that I was going to go to.
I don't know if you fully understand eternity. Then
I think it's bravado. Don't get me wrong.
Eternity that he knew that I was going to go to before I was ever born, because he is omniscient.
What happens if eternity meant spending your rest of your eternity forever and ever watching GMAD videos? Would that change your mind?
That is better than that. Wow, that's funny.
Try to think something worse than that. Go ahead. Try.
That is better than being around this megalomaniacal, infanticidal piece of shit, lying, call it a deity if you want to. I don't really care. That infinitely better than saying I would rather, he's going to send me to hell. First off, that he knew I was going to go to no matter what, because he's omniscient. He still created me, even though knowing I was going to go to hell. Then Jeffrey Dahmer's in heaven, just because he accepted on his deathbed.
Yeah, if he's omniscient. True. If he's yes and no. I will say this: even though hyper Calvinism is the purely deterministic version of
Christianity,
I will say that if you have a single person that within time has omniscience, they know what you're going to do next Thursday at 2 p.m.
Predeterminism.
Just by having the omniscience to know that. At that point, what do you really have to do anything different?
I hate to do this to you guys. I hate to do this. I have 9 minutes before I got to go pick up my regular, and I got to take her. She's actually a prostitute. I have to take her to her John probably.
Nice.
Yeah, well, hey, money's money. So I got 9 minutes. I want to get Jason's take on this one, and then I got plugs.
All right. So, I was Presbyterian, then a Fundamental Baptist, and I was in the youth group, church basketball team, all that good stuff. And what really strikes me as odd about the Bible is how patently wicked and evil the deity is. That's not only that, he's incompetent. And the thing is there is a certain bliss when you become an atheist. I mean, I don't know if it's that way for everybody, but I know it was for me. Once I realized that the world was actually far more complicated and awe-inspiring than simply being the product of whatever I'm claiming to worship, I think that's what got to me more than anything, Jim, was the ego thing. And it still drives me crazy to see people who are like, hey, man, here's, 45.6 billion light years and radius or whatever our universe is, and we're on this tiny little rock, right, man? I don't get it. But here are people, man. They're literally telling you, I speak with and am made in the image of the creator of all of this. I can think of no higher hubris or arrogance than that. it's almost like the epitome of egotism, right? Like,
and
he tells me in a way I can be sure that I cannot
and they
be
say
wrong.
they know what he wants.
And he tells me not to masturbate. He's very picky about that.
See, okay, we're talking about the wrong God, because mine says do it 3, 5, 4 times a day. So.
Yeah.
So different deities.
My record is 7, baby.
You're worshiping Moloch, right?
7.
God. But so when it comes to whether or not this deity existed or exists, right? Okay, let's just go ahead and say it's objectively true. This deity exists. I'm going to throw you for a curveball here. Probably all of you guys. I love my daughter. I love my wife, my family. If there were a way to capitulate and satisfy, this deity, somehow make it into heaven and spend the rest of eternity, with my family, I might make that happen, even though I don't even think we have sufficient language to describe the kind of foul being that the incompetent, purportedly omniscient, omnipresent, omnibenevolent,
That's the protector
pragmatism.
military. No, that's the first
pragmatic.
responder in you.
Yeah.
Like 1% of the population is the sheepdogs, and you are one of them. You're all about sacrificing yourself for the well-being of others.
Yeah.
Even if I couldn't fool that God, which of course is a big problem with Pascal's wager. I might try to get my daughter to believe or something,
Well, that's a pragmatic approach, though. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And that's just keeping it really, really real. Now, if it was just be by myself, burn me, baby. I mean, I realize it's eternity and everything, and I think a lot about that, and the concept of eternity is insane.
But the problem is nobody, I get that, but the problem I find with it is that, look, you're standing up for moral grounds. I get that. I think that in today's society, it's admirable to have the moral, ethical concerns that you stand up for. But we're talking an eternity where nobody's going to give a shit whether you stood up for anything. In that particular case, there's nothing to be gained by conscientious objection.
You know what?
You know what sucks about having a 138 IQ is I can understand eternity probably better than most, and it fucking scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. Once you start, as an atheist, the first thing that I really came to terms with, especially going through physics and shit like that, I'm not a physicist, but prerequisite college courses and all that, is just how big all this shit is and how small I am.
Look at
that's kind of why I actually have one of the videos on my channel. I compared time to distance. Yep. And I said, okay, so let's consider that every human life is an inch long. So the length of 2 fingers put together. Every human life. Quick,
Suris, we got 3 minutes.
I will. Every human life is an inch long. How many inches do you have in your house? How many lifetimes is that? Okay. How many houses can you fit on the earth? That's that many lifetimes. How many Earths can you fit in our universe? That's that many lifetimes. Okay, that is small compared to eternity.
Okay, so here's another thing, I guess, before we end it here, Jim. I have 2 ways that I can prevent myself from being taken by this deity anyways, all right? 1, I'm going to make myself an iron chariot. I'm gonna live in that motherfucker, and I'm gonna blow raspberries at that son of a bitch.
Yeah, I hear.
Please, someone in the live chat link the actual Bible verse to
and then I'm gonna try to figure out how Adam and Eve hid in the garden, and I'm gonna hide from him. And he can walk around and he can ask to look for me all he wants. I'm gonna stay quiet. I'm gonna live in the trunk of my tree wherever I see, and that's
the ultimate game of hide and seek.
I have never heard that response before ever. That is really good.
That is good. I'll give you that. That is
all right. I'm going to start with Suris the Skeptic. Plugs, shout outs, upcoming events.
Upcoming, I have a collaboration with Genetically Modified Skeptic that's going to be happening here. Should be happening this month, assuming both of our schedules align. That's going to be on vitamin B17 because all of us know that thing's a giant piece of horseshit. On top of that, if you want to go watch my channel, I cover atheism, argumentation, dangers of woo, just a whole bunch of stuff like that. I've actually recently started getting into philosophical arguments against God and Yahweh and which ones we should probably drop and which ones we should probably start using. If you guys like that kind of content, then awesome. My channel's there for that.
Tell genetically modified to answer my damn text messages. He's not that goddamn big yet.
Oh, he doesn't answer mine either. Like
Okay.
he answers mine. He answers mine, and
Fuck
then
you,
it takes him a
Steve.
week to answer again.
All right, Steve McRae.
I had him on my show when he was 100 subs, so whatever.
Well,
he was nobody.
Tell me your secret. Anyway, Steve McRae next.
Steve McRae. I have my own channel, Steve McRae, that I'll be starting on Saturdays. A new show called DEFCON 1 Science with Landon Curtin-Knoll, who's a very prominent computer scientist, astronomer, and mathematician. And we're going to be talking about the core of science things. We're going to be talking about nuclear weapons. We're going to be talking about math proofs, what it entails to be something in science. And I also have another friend, Jonathan Herbert, who's a PhD student, who's going to be joining us. And I also was a co-host of the Non Sequitur Show, which we do Monday through Fridays with one day a week, usually for ideology, with Caitlin Kirtland. Or Caitlin Chloe, sorry. I knew that. And this next week we have what I've been looking for as a show on Christians Against Dinosaurs, which is a group of Christians that have maintained that there's been a super secret organization throughout the ages that have gone forth and scattered fossils everywhere. So the finders will be confused and be led away by Satan because dinosaurs aren't a thing.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
Caitlin Chloe is awesome. That I am totally going to watch that. And just FYI for everyone listening or listening later, that the Non Sequitur Show was recently voted in the top 40 best atheist YouTube podcasts to watch.
And so was my channel. I was number 41? 31? No, at 38. So I don't know. I was like 30 something or other. So I'm on there twice. Nice. And I'm not even an atheist. I got you all beat.
Just share that list. You share that list with Jacqueline Glenn, so stay humble.
Good point.
Touche.
Hey,
I thought Atheist Edge is on there, was it not?
No, I'm 50, baby.
We need to get you.
When I say it's not I anymore, because recently, I'll just go ahead and throw my plug in now. Courtney, my co-host, is regularly being interviewed on KHVN. It's a syndicated AM. I know it's AM, but it's a K Heaven radio station. And she's getting a lot of traction on that. It's AM radio, but it's syndicated nationally. And every time Atheist Edge is brought up now, it's a picture of her. So I guess I just reduced to production manager. So I need to get my eyebrows tweezed, or I need to get a boob job or something, because she is now the official. She's now the official face of our organization.
You could have worse.
Yeah,
she's not
hard on the eyes.
Not hard on the eyes at all. So
yes.
I would.
You know what?
Go with that.
If it works, it works. And if it gets the word out, fucking go for it.
She's smart.
And she's twice as smart as me. Jason Ellis.
No plugs,
yes, sir.
And I'm easy peasy. I just
you're too humble.
Everything, man.
You do okay. So he's too humble. I will say that he does a lot of stream of consciousness live chats on Facebook, where sometimes he's in his car and he will just come out with the most brilliant shit just off the cuff. So if you want to friend him, I'm sure you have enough space in your friends list. Just friend Jason Ellis, and you will get some information.
I get a lot of hot chick invites. So if you clarify who you are when you message me, that'd be great.
Well, you have to be careful nowadays because it's close to November, and all of us are getting a lot of those from Africa and from Eastern Europe.
Yep.
Yeah, so you just have to screen your friend invites. Nathaniel Walters, American Atheist.
That's me. I knew you were gonna call on me next. I was like, damn. I turned the thermostat down because while I was sitting here, my girlfriend said it's hot downstairs. That's where she's at. So I had to go and take care of that. Eye Doctor Obvious is in the chat, and he already said I have the best channel on Periscope. Alex Jones is also on Periscope, so I'm better than him. That's not hard. That's mean. He had like 1.4 million people following him on Facebook.
You are an assistant state representative of American Atheist in Texas, correct?
Yeah, I am the assistant state director here in Texas. recently and going forward, we also have had multiple events here. The last big event was the need for required comprehensive sex education in the state of Texas. We've had representatives that are either currently in office or are running for public office that we're in a coalition with, as well as I am leading a movement here in Texas to get secular voters, the second largest voting bloc in the entire country, registered to vote in voting this November, and that's huge. I'm also on Periscope at Atheist Husker, and Courtney is, on the she's a good friend of mine, and I couldn't think of anybody better to represent your show, Jim. Obviously you're an option or whatever, but Courtney is amazing, and so I'm very happy that she's done that. I have been. I'm an apologist named Dean Meadows, who is a friend of mine. He is like the head of. Well, they changed their name. They're now the Daily Apologist. We've been trying to get he's been wanting to debate me on something. I forget what it is. He's a good guy, and I've been trying to get hold of Steve for the longest time. So hey, Steve, you're over there on my screen.
Let's do it.
Yes, I would.
I think I'd say the Daily Stormer there for a second. I'd be like, no, not touching that one.
No, fuck no.
I'm not touching that one.
No, there's nobody on there that's my friend.
I was like, yeah, I wasn't sure where you were going with that. I was like, oh my God.
No, but yeah, we were actually getting something together at App State University for next year after the American Atheist National Convention in Cincy, and we think that's kind of fallen through the cracks. So yeah, Steve, we're gonna get in touch. I'm gonna get in touch with you.
Do that. Awesome.
He's the guy to do it. Yeah. TJ plugs. I'm basically asking you to plug me, but all right.
I know it's gonna be a plug of you because we're doing the biggest thing that we have coming up is the Richard Carrier interview.
Richard Carrier.
Yeah.
What date is it? 29 September?
Yeah, 29 September. We're doing that at 1800 Central Time, and for you non-military folks at 6 p.m. So if we can get all of
he's going to be fresh. He's going to be fresh off of his MythCon. He got invited to MythCon, and he actually agreed to attend, which is pretty cool.
Just don't mention PZ Myers or Tim O'Neill.
I met PZ Myers in Cologne, Germany, and I met Rebecca Watson right when all the elevator gate was starting. Yeah. That's going to be fun.
That's pretty big. Yeah.
We were invited to Milwaukee, but I don't know if we're going to go.
You and Kyle?
Yeah, we got invited by them actually comped, but
think about it. The fact that Carrier is going to this, it lends so much. Think of all logistics.
I would love to go, and I'm thrilled that they asked us.
Cover your ears, Nathaniel. All the snowflakes that are not going to want Carrier to go because he's like, their patron saint, right?
I got people I think about Armored Skeptic in June.
Well, shoe on head, yeah, but they go every time. But someone like Carrier shows up.
We have Armored Skeptic coming on, and I've already gotten flack from some atheist friends. Why are you giving him a platform?
Exactly.
Yeah. Seriously, I really have. It's like, really?
I'd like to point out that I'm not that person. Okay, I'm a social justice guy. I'm not this social justice warrior. Okay, I'm not that person.
Courtney has said the same thing to me, and
there's a difference, and I think that distinction can be made. Yes,
right. I just think it's really good that someone like him is showing up, and it's going to open up a lot of, and which ties into this topic. The main topic of this show is, open, free marketplace of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. All right. Anyone else? Last word.
Yeah, one last thing that I was going to mention too is I was going to say that possibly, like, I have a YouTube channel that I haven't done anything with. It's just kind of sitting there, like as an open palette for me to do something with eventually. And I was thinking about actually pretty soon starting a Magic Online streaming.
Dude, I'm down. I like.
Here we go.
Yeah. So if
you had me at Magic, you didn't even have to have it gathering.
Well,
I'm not gonna make it.
I'll bring my blue-green deck.
You guys let me know if you
just to stream games and show people, metas and just deck strategies and stuff. But
what is it? It's the Depraved Atheist, right?
I went back to my legal name for the channel.
Dennis Tuttle.
Well, because I was trying to get a job at the time, and I didn't want to be associated with something that could have been considered inflammatory by an employer. So I might, I might actually go back to something or some derivation of a Magic, Magic the Gathering sort of name. So maybe look out for that. That might be coming.
Cool. We will. I'll plug it, even though, being a World of Warcraft addict for 4 years running, I can kind of relate to. But I'll plug it.
World of Warcraft 10 years. I know how to get out of it.
Dude, I was hardcore raiding guild for 6 days straight. It was it was beyond a second job. It sucked.
I do World of Tanks and Kerbal's space program.
I heard Kerbal's pretty good. I haven't tried it, but
Kerbal is amazing.
Yeah,
we just had Truth Search on the show, and in the course of the conversation, he said that he was a voice actor. I was like, talk about that a little bit. He did every Klingon voice on Star Trek Online. Yeah. I had no idea. People in the live chat were going ape shit.
Yeah, I was going ape shit. Yeah, because I play Star Trek Online.
You were like fawning over. I was like, geez, you want to suck his dick?
Yeah, and I can't believe you got him.
Flop it out, man.
I don't get it. I've been asking Truth Surge for like 4 months now to come on, and he says he will. And every time I try to arrange something, scheduling, and yet he managed to get on your channel. So props to you, man.
Yeah,
it took a couple tries. He doesn't know how to figure out Google Hangouts, but we finally got him. Anyway, guys, it's been awesome.
Yeah,
this has been far exceeded expectations. All right, we'll catch you next time.
All right, later, guys.
Bye-bye.